Chapter 50. We're going to see Zhao Yujian, Feng Na said. You want to come? Cheng Cheng smiled. Yeah, anywhere is fine as long as we don't stay at school. Feng Na grabbed Cheng Cheng's arm. Okay. Let's go together. Li Yundong smiled. Then let's go together. Yundong, what were you guys laughing at just now? Su Chan tugged at Li Yundong's sleeve in confusion. What were you guys laughing at just now? You didn't understand? Li Yundong asked. Su Chan shook her head. You don't understand English? Li Yundong asked. Su Chan nodded. No. Feng Na, who was walking in front of Li Yundong, couldn't help but feel a sense of superiority. She turned around and smiled. Don't tell me you don't understand basic English? Why do I have to understand English? Su Chan asked. After a while, Cheng Cheng gave Su Chan a thumbs up. Well said, Cheng Cheng said, giving Su Chan a thumbs up. I didn't expect you to be so pretty and well-spoken. No wonder you have the combination of beauty and intelligence. Feng Na was jealous of Su Chan, but she wasn't a petty woman. She smacked Cheng Cheng with a smile. That's disgusting. The four of them took a taxi to the First People's Hospital, where Zhao Yujian was hospitalized. Li Yundong went to withdraw some money, while Feng Na bought some flowers, Cheng Cheng bought some fruits, and Su Chan carried a bag of biscuits that Li Yundong had bought at the supermarket. When they found Zhao Yujian's room, they went upstairs. Zhao Yujian came from a wealthy family, so he stayed in a single VIP room. There weren't as many people in the hallway as there were in a normal room, and the smell of disinfectant was absent. As soon as they reached the door, Li Yundong heard a begging voice coming from inside Zhao Yujian's room. Zhou Qin, don't be so heartless, okay? I really like you. I'm sure we'll have a lot in common. By the way, don't you like taekwondo? My family bought you a little gold figurine from a city-level competition. How about I give it to you? A woman's voice also came from the ward, also full of pleading. Zhou Qin, my Yujian has been thinking about you these days. Even if he is so pitiful now, you should have some sympathy in your heart, right? Am I right? Before the woman could finish her words, another girl interrupted her. Li Yundong was very familiar with this voice. It was Ding Nan. Auntie, do you think that love can be given out of charity? Can you give alms to love by being pitiful? Wouldn't beggars be the happiest people in this world? Ding Nan's words were as sharp and unkind as ever. Li Yundong, who was outside the door, couldn't help but grimace when he heard it. Zhao Yujian's mother was obviously irritated by Ding Nan's words, but she was obviously afraid of something. She didn't dare to say anything. Instead, she lowered her voice and said, Zhou Qin, that's not what I meant. I meant. Ding Nan interrupted her rudely and said, Then what do you mean? Do you want Zhou Qin to pretend to be Zhao Yujian's girlfriend and take care of him while he's bedridden? Come on, how old are you? Why are you still so childish? Feng Na and Cheng Cheng, who were outside the door, couldn't bear to listen to Ding Nan's words any longer. Their faces were filled with indignation. Sooner or later, this woman will get herself into big trouble because of her sharp words. Feng Na said in a low voice, frowning. Cheng Cheng nodded in agreement. I heard that Ding Nan was a very rude girl, but I didn't expect her words to be so harsh. That's too much. Forget it, Ding Nan, Zhou Qin said. That's enough. Auntie, Zhao Yujian needs more rest. We'll be leaving now. After that, Zhou Qin walked out of the ward without a trace of hesitation. As soon as she reached the door, she was surprised to see Feng Na and the others standing there. Zhou Qin frowned slightly, clearly unhappy that they had overheard what she had just said. But when Zhou Qin's eyes fell on Li Yundong, her eyes suddenly lit up, and the frown on her face loosened slightly. Ding Nan followed Zhou Qin out of the ward. Her eyes lit up as soon as she saw Li Yundong. Just as she was about to reveal a look of pleasant surprise on her face, however, her expression turned cold the moment her eyes fell on Feng Na and Su Chan. Eavesdropping? Feng Na was no pushover either. Even though the smile on her face was polite, there was a hidden meaning in her words. Well, that depends on what good news you have for us to listen in on. Ding Nan had never lost a verbal argument before. Her expression changed and she was about to say something, but Zhou Qin stopped her. Nanan, let's go. Don't disturb Li Yundong and the others from visiting the patient. After that, Zhou Qin left with Ding Nan. Cheng Cheng stared at the backs of the two people and shook her head. Those two are so strange. The more I look at them, the stranger they seem. One is cold and deep like an abyss, and the other is as sharp as a knife. Li Yundong smiled. Forget about them. Let's go in. As soon as they entered the ward, Li Yundong saw Zhao Yujian's mother feeding him porridge. Yujian, don't bother with a woman like that, Li Yundong said. You still have your mother. I'll find you someone better than her, 100 times better. Wasn't it because he had a powerful father? What's the big deal? Don't care about her. Her voice was like that of a mother who had just given birth to her child. Just by listening to her voice, Li Yundong could tell that this mother spoiled her son to the extreme. Zhao Yujian turned his head away impatiently. I'm not eating. I'm not eating. I just want Zhou Qin. I like her. Get out of my face. I don't want you to care about me. Zhao Yujian's mother didn't get angry. Instead, she put down the bowl and caressed Zhao Yujian's chest. Okay. Don't say anything. Where are you feeling unwell? Do you want me to rub it for you? Feng Na and Cheng Cheng stood at the door and looked at each other. The way they saw it, even delicate girls like them had never been served by anyone before, let alone a grown man being served by his mother like this. For a moment, the people at the door looked very awkward. No one said a word. Zhao Yujian's mother noticed them and walked up to them with a smile. You're here to see Yujian, aren't you? Welcome. Thank you for the trouble. She took the fruits and flower baskets from Feng Na and Cheng Cheng's hands, then turned to Su Chan. Put the things on the cabinet over there, Su Chan said. As soon as she finished speaking, Zhao Yujian pointed a finger at Li Yundong. What the hell are you doing here? Are you here to mock me? Haven't you made me look like this enough? Zhao Yujian's mother froze for a second, but she quickly regained her composure and pointed at Li Yundong. You did this to my Yujian? How dare you come here again, you little bastard? I'm going to beat you to death. Li Yundong frowned and used his arm to block the woman who was lunging at him. Now that he had reached the level of qi refinement, his strength was far beyond that of an ordinary person. Even though he didn't use much strength in his block, the Jindan Yuan qi in his body naturally repelled Zhao Yujian's mother. Zhao Yujian's mother fell to the ground and started crying. Murder! This little bastard hurt my son. And now he's going to kill me. Li Yundong, Feng Na, and the others looked at each other in dismay. None of them had expected Zhao Yujian to have a mother like this. For a moment they didn't know what to do. Auntie, we're here to see Zhao Yujian, Feng Na said with a smile. Last time, Li Yundong hurt Zhao Yujian by accident. He didn't do it on purpose. Before Feng Na could finish her sentence, Zhao Yujian's mother wiped her tears and snot from her face. You shameless little b*****. Who the hell are you to this guy? Why are you speaking up for him like that? You must be his mistress, aren't you? I've seen a lot of women like you. What do you mean by accident? You're just jealous of my Yujian, aren't you? That's why you hit him so hard, isn't it? Feng Na was stunned by the scolding. She blushed and argued, Auntie, it's not like that. Li Yundong took Feng Na by the arm and said, Auntie, I'm sorry about what happened to Zhao Yujian, but he was the one who provoked me first. I fought back because I didn't want to. A lot of people can testify to that. Feng Na can also testify to that. Zhao Yujian's mother jumped to her feet and yelled, You little bastard! You're slandering me. My Yujian has always been well-mannered since he was a child. There's no way he would lower himself to the level of a little bastard like you. Who can testify to that? Her. She's your mistress. Of course she'll testify for you. How dare you bring that up? Li Yundong couldn't take it anymore. Anger bubbled up in his chest. Auntie, no matter what, he said. Zhao Yujian broke his calf. I apologize. I'll pay for his medical fees, Li Yundong said. Zhao Yujian's mother spat a mouthful of phlegm on the ground, interrupting Li Yundong's words. Look at how poor you are. You think you can afford it? Don't even talk about the medical fees. Even a strand of my son's hair is worth more than you. Get out. I don't care about your money. Get out. Use the money to buy a coffin for your family. Feng Na and the others were stunned. They never thought that this kind and gentle mother would turn out to be so fierce. She was like a completely different person than when she was with Zhou Qin. While they were still in a daze, Zhou Qin suddenly appeared at the door again. Zhao Yujian's mother, who had been cursing Zhao Yujian a moment ago, suddenly looked kind again. "Zhou Qin," she said, looking embarrassed. "Why are you back?" Zhao Yujian, who was leaning against the bed, glared at Li Yundong. His eyes were filled with sadness and anger. He didn't know what was so good about Li Yundong. Why did all the girls favor him? Why did his favorite girl, Zhou Qin, think so highly of him? But when Zhou Qin appeared at the door again, Zhao Yujian's eyes lit up. It was as if the anger had returned to his body. He sat up straight and said, "Zhou Qin, you are." Zhou Qin didn't even look at him. Instead, she turned to Li Yundong and nodded at Feng Na and Cheng Cheng. "Can I talk to you in private?" Zhou Qin said. Li Yundong suddenly realized that Zhou Qin was helping him get out of this damned place. Li Yundong quickly winked at Su Chan and followed Zhou Qin out of the room. Sigh, kids, you guys are too aggressive. I'm afraid of you guys. Chapter 51. Even though Cheng Cheng hadn't been scolded to her face, she was still furious. "What an ungrateful bastard," she said. "I've finally seen through this Zhao Yujian. I used to think he was an excellent boy, but now I see that he's still wet behind the ears." Cheng Cheng patted Li Yundong on the arm. "Good job. I'll teach him a lesson next time." Li Yundong smiled. "Thank you so much for today," he said to Zhou Qin. "If it weren't for you, I would have been scolded to death." Zhou Qin couldn't help but look at Li Yundong's face curiously. She wanted to know why Li Yundong had changed so much in such a short time. She smiled and said, "Actually, I really did want to talk to you about something." Li Yundong was a little surprised by her words. "Oh, what do you want to talk to me about?" "My birthday is in 3 days. Can you come?" Zhou Qin stared at Li Yundong. Her expression didn't change, but her clenched fists betrayed the nervousness in her heart. This was the first time she had taken the initiative to ask a boy out. Feng Na and Cheng Cheng looked at each other and exclaimed inwardly, "Are you sure?" Zhou Qin took the initiative to ask a boy out to her birthday party? "I heard that this girl is super arrogant. Is she in heat today? Or did she take the wrong medicine? Didn't they hear that she rejected Li Yundong's confession last time?" But what shocked them even more was yet to come. Li Yundong froze for a moment. He turned to look at Su Chan and asked, "Can I bring my girlfriend?" Cheng Cheng's eyes widened at his words. Cheng Cheng secretly gave him a thumbs up. What's the difference between saying such a thing in front of the campus belle of Tiannan University and slapping her in the face? Awesome. Feng Na, on the other hand, looked a little gloomy. When Zhou Qin heard Li Yundong's answer, she was also stunned. She subconsciously glanced at Su Chan, only to see that the little girl's black hair was tied up high like a cloud. She was pure and charming, and there was a sense of charm in her. She was really so beautiful that women couldn't help but be amazed. Zhou Qin didn't fly into a rage like Cheng Cheng and Feng Na expected. Instead, she grinned and said, "Of course." After that, she smiled at Feng Na and Cheng Cheng. "You guys come too, okay?" Zhou Qin's noble temperament made Feng Na and Cheng Cheng feel like they were junior sisters in front of her, while Zhou Qin was like a senior sister. Feng Na smiled. "I'll do as you say." Cheng Cheng, on the other hand, seemed much more timid. She pointed at herself and said, "Me?" Zhou Qin nodded. "Yes." Cheng Cheng smiled and said, "That's great. Then I'll wait for you at home in 3 days." Zhou Qin smiled and turned to leave with Ding Nan. Zhou Qin's smile reminded Li Yundong, Feng Na, and Cheng Cheng of the smiles of people who had been in power for a long time on TV. For a moment they all wondered what kind of family background this girl had. The three of them stayed in the corridor for a while, then walked out of the building while talking about Zhou Qin's family. When she got downstairs, Cheng Cheng suddenly clapped her hands and thought, "Hey! Those flowers, fruits, and supplements were all swallowed by that damned woman. Damn it, you took our things and still scolded us. What a piece of ****. Feng Na laughed and scolded, "Come on, we're here to see a patient. These things were originally meant to be given away. As long as the gifts are delivered, let her insult whoever she wants to. Those who insult others will be humiliated, right?" Li Yundong smiled and said, "As long as you don't feel guilty, it's fine. It's her business whether others appreciate it or not, right?" "That's right," Feng Na praised. "No wonder you're my idol." With that, the two of them burst into laughter. Su Chan frowned slightly and said, Buddha said that great cultivators should not be ignorant of karma. I think this matter just happened to fall into karma. I'm afraid it won't end well. Li Yundong, Feng Na, and Chang Cheng understood every word of this sentence, but when they put it together they were confused. Feng Na and Chang Cheng stared at Su Chan with their eyes wide open, as if they couldn't understand why such a beautiful little girl would say such incomprehensible words. Li Yundong had been with Su Chan for a long time, so he had some understanding of her. He also knew about the strange experience she had with her master in the mountains, so he asked with a smile, "Master, can you explain what karma means?" Su Chan almost opened her mouth to say, "You don't even know this? This is something that the whole cultivation world knows." Fortunately, she held back her words and explained, "It means that no matter how powerful a person is, they can't escape the karma." Li Yundong suddenly understood and said, "I see. For example, Zhao Yujian has a mother like this who spoils him so much, so he probably won't be any better off. That's the reason. This guy has created his current personality because of this reason, so he will get what he has today." "Is that what you mean?" "That's what I mean," Su Chan said. Chang Cheng laughed and said to Li Yundong, "I didn't know that your girlfriend was such a philosopher." Li Yundong laughed heartily. He was happier than when someone praised him. He ruffled Su Chan's hair affectionately. "Don't praise her," he said. "She gets carried away easily." Li Yundong's doting eyes made Feng Na feel a little depressed. She smiled and said, "Be careful. Don't spoil her too much. This is the cause. When she becomes a henpecked husband in the future, this will be the result." Then they all burst into laughter. What none of them knew was that Zhao Yujian was lying on his side in the hospital room. One of his hands was clutching the sheets tightly, and the other was clenched into a fist. His fingernails dug deep into his flesh, but he didn't even notice it. His eyes were filled with hatred and resentment, and his ears were deaf to his mother's loving voice. A seed of hatred was slowly sprouting in his heart. But just then, an unexpected guest appeared at the door of Zhao Yujian's hospital room. "Hey, isn't this Zhao Yujian? Why are you lying here?" A careless voice rang out from inside Zhao Yujian's room. Zhao Yujian turned his head and saw Xie looking at him with a smile. "What are you doing here?" Xie walked in with a smile. "Come on, I'm here to see a buddy of mine." Zhao Yujian's mother glanced at Xie and frowned. "You are?" she asked. Xie nodded at Zhao Yujian's mother. "Auntie, I'm Zhao Yujian's classmate." Zhao Yujian's mother smiled. "Okay, I'll get you a glass of water." She picked up the thermos from the bedside and realized that there was no water. She smiled at Xie. "I'll go get some water. Have a seat." Xie smiled. "Thank you, Auntie." Zhao Yujian's mother laughed. Yujian's classmate is so sensible, unlike those guys who just showed up. Damn it. She walked out of the room, cursing and swearing. Zhao Yujian's mother laughed. Xie watched Zhao Yujian's mother walk out of the room. "What's going on?" he asked. Zhao Yujian had a good relationship with Xie. He was a taekwondo practitioner himself, and he had helped Xie fight a few times in private. Xie had also given him a lot of benefits in return. Zhao Yujian told Xie about what had happened to Li Yundong. "If I don't get my revenge, I'm not a man." Zhao Yujian growled in a low voice. Xie had a history with Zhao Yujian. Xie laughed when he heard that. "Good. You've got balls. I'll get a few of my buddies to help you beat him up." Zhao Yujian shook his head. "I'll get my revenge with my own hands," he said through gritted teeth. Xie looked at Zhao Yujian strangely and sighed. "Forget it, bro, listen to me. You can't beat him in a one-on-one fight. This son of a bitch is too much of a pain in the ass. Unless what?" Zhao Yujian said coldly. Xie seemed to have thought of something. A murderous look appeared in his eyes. "Unless you have a gun." "A gun?" Zhao Yujian's cold, gray eyes began to fill with madness. "You can get your hands on a gun? I'm not that good," Xie said darkly. "But I know someone who can." Shh. After parting ways with Feng Na and Cheng Cheng, Li Yundong and Su Chan returned to their new home. That night, Li Yundong prepared a sumptuous dinner for Su Chan. After dinner, Li Yundong sat down in the spacious living room to meditate and practice qi. For Li Yundong, practicing qi had become his passion. It was not only because it could increase his strength, but also because he could feel an extreme sense of comfort and pleasure in the process of meditating and practicing qi. Since Li Yundong had completed the Great Zhoutian realm, the meridians in his body were fully expanded. His qi could now flow through the meridians on its own. As long as there was no external interference, Li Yundong would not go berserk. Su Chan felt a lot more at ease. She stared at Li Yundong for only an hour, then went back to her room to watch TV. After the lesson of smashing a TV with a single punch last time, Li Yundong had specifically explained to Su Chan the concept of a TV. After the initial fuss, Su Chan had become obsessed with watching TV, especially the primetime soap operas of various TV stations. This kind of leisurely life lasted for 2 days. Tiannan City finally ushered in the much-anticipated exchange day. Early that morning, Li Yundong changed his clothes and left the house with Su Chan. When they arrived at the school was already decorated with lanterns and streamers. Colorful flags and bilingual Chinese and English banners were hung everywhere. The students in the school were also dressed to the nines. Their faces were full of joy as they discussed the rare event of Tiannan University. It's so beautiful. Su Chan had been to Tiannan University quite a few times. Her eyes lit up when she saw the colorful flags and all kinds of costumes. She clapped her hands and praised Li Yundong. Li Yundong smiled. Just as he was about to enter the campus with Su Chan, he heard a voice coming from beside him. Hey, where are you two from? Li Yundong turned his head and saw a teacher at the school gate shouting at them. This teacher was none other than the middle-aged teacher who had wanted to grab Su Chan and use her as a hostess. Li Yundong frowned. Mr. Liu, he said. You don't recognize me anymore? Mr. Liu walked up to Li Yundong and deliberately looked him up and down. I'm sorry, he said. There are so many people in this school. I don't know you. Li Yundong said patiently, Mr. Liu, I'm a second-year student at this school. I'm Li Yundong from the Chinese department. Please let me in. Mr. Liu held out his hand and said in a businesslike manner, Oh? Where's your student ID? He pulled out his student ID from his wallet and waved it at Su Chan. Here, he said. Can I go in now? Then he let Su Chan into the building. Su Chan nodded. Wait, the middle-aged teacher said slowly. You can go in, but she can't. Li Yundong turned around and said angrily, Why not? Mr. Liu rolled his eyes. Today is an exchange meeting. Other people are not allowed to enter. Li Yundong said angrily, She's not like other people. She could go in before, but why not today? Does she look like a criminal to you? Teacher Liu sneered and used his hand to dig his ear. That's hard to say. People nowadays are all pretentious. Who knows? Li Yundong was furious. What did you just say? I dare you to say it again. Li Yundong glared at Mr. Liu. He was so scared that he took 3 steps back. Their actions attracted the attention of the students around them. The security guards at the school gate also ran over. Teacher Liu immediately gathered his courage and puffed out his chest. What, you still want to beat me up? Fine. Li Yundong was so angry that his knuckles cracked. Su Chan tugged at his hand and shook her head. Forget it. I'm not going. You go by yourself today. I'll wait for you at the gate. Just remember to pick me up. Li Yundong heard Su Chan say it calmly, but his heart ached. Anger rushed to his head. Fine. If you won't let her in, then I won't either. Li Yundong said through gritted teeth. Mr. Liu let out a strange laugh. Do as you please. Students like you who don't know how to respect their teachers don't make a difference. Li Yundong laughed angrily. God has eyes. It's great to have one less teacher like you. Idiot. Chapter 52. Li Yundong put his arm around Su Chan's shoulders and knocked her on the head. Idiot, this isn't your problem. It's the teachers these days who are getting more and more unethical. Su Chan felt a little better, but her eyebrows were still full of gloom. But will you be fired? She asked. Li Yundong laughed. If they really want to expel me, then let them. What's so great about this third-rate university? Su Chan was still very worried. But didn't you promise to compete with someone? She asked. Isn't today the exchange day? Li Yundong sneered. Whoever wants to go can go. I'm not going to wait on them. Besides, it's not that I don't want to go. It's that they won't let me. Isn't that right? Suchan didn't say anything. She just lowered her head and gently rubbed the ground with the tips of her feet. Li Yundong saw that Suchan's face was full of worry, and his heart clenched. He couldn't wait to wipe away the melancholy between her eyebrows. He reached out, grabbed Suchan's chin and lifted her face up. He deliberately put on a naughty smile. Girl, what are you unhappy about? Come on, smile for me. Then, before Suchan could react, he pretended to be sad. You don't want to smile? Then I'll smile for you. After that, he used the index fingers of both hands to poke the dimples on his cheeks. He grinned as brightly as a 5-year-old child. Suchan was, after all, a little girl. She immediately burst into laughter. She said coquettishly, Sir, your smile is so ugly. Li Yundong pretended to be angry. You think my smile is ugly? Why don't you show me a beautiful smile? Suchan smiled brightly. She was so beautiful that she was really charming. Her peach blossom eyes, which were like crescent moons, mesmerized Li Yundong so much that he couldn't tell what was going on, and his heart was beating wildly. Li Yundong sighed inwardly. No wonder in ancient times, King Yu of Zhou did something so stupid as to make fun of the nobles just to win Baoxi's smile. How many men in the world can withstand the destructive power of a smile like that? Well, the girl's smile is beautiful and I'm very happy, so. The unhappiness in Li Yundong's heart was dispelled by the girl's sweet smile. He waved his hand and said, I'll take you out to play. At the mention of play, Suchan was so happy that her eyes and nose couldn't be seen. She grabbed Li Yundong's arm as if she was afraid that he would abandon her and go play by himself. Where to play? Where to play? She asked. Li Yundong smiled and said, Didn't I promise to go to the amusement park last time? Let's go to the amusement park to play. Suchan was happy and confused at the same time. Okay, but what kind of place is an amusement park? Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why are you so happy when you don't even know where it is? Idiot! Suchan pouted. Don't call me stupid. I'm not stupid. Li Yundong laughed heartily. The little girl had put her hair in a bun today, and he couldn't rub it. If he did, it would be too messy. Li Yundong reached out and pinched the little girl's cheeks. You're not stupid. You're just silly. Suchan slapped Li Yundong's hand away. You're so annoying. After a while, Suchan suddenly thought of something and asked, Is stupid the meaning of a stupid C***T? Li Yundong laughed. Nonsense. I said you're silly because you're silly and adorable. Calling someone an idiot was an insult. It means that a person is hopelessly stupid. Don't learn to swear like that. Suchan stuck out her tongue and smiled. Okay, I won't say it if you don't want me to say it. The two of them chatted and laughed. They stopped a taxi and went straight to the amusement park in Tiannan City. It was already the end of May, and it was almost Children's Day. The amusement park in Tiannan City was filled with colorful balls and lanterns. Suchan was attracted by the lively scene at the entrance even before she entered the park. She looked around curiously and took Li Yundong's hand. She wanted to visit all the shops in the square. Li Yundong smiled and pulled the little girl back. Okay, you can eat later. I'm full now. Be careful not to throw up later. Suchan asked in confusion. Why would I throw up? Li Yundong smiled maliciously and said, You'll know later. Since it wasn't Children's Day yet, there weren't many people in the amusement park. Li Yundong only waited in line for a while, then bought 2 passes and pulled Suchan into the amusement park. As soon as they entered the gate, Li Yundong pulled Suchan straight to the highest and most conspicuous space shuttle in the amusement park. Although there weren't many people in the amusement park, the space shuttle was the main attraction of the amusement park. There were also many people waiting in line. Li Yundong and Suchan waited in line for half an hour before it was their turn. The two of them sat in the space shuttle. Li Yundong hugged the safety handrail in front of his chest and said to Suchan with a smirk, If you're afraid, you can shout. Suchan sat in the seat, and the inverted safety handrail pressed against her plump chest, attracting the eyes of the people around them to look at Suchan, as if they were looking forward to the girl's performance in the game. Suchan blinked her eyes. Why would I shout? Li Yundong giggled and said, Because I'm afraid. Didn't you see that everyone else was shouting just now? Oh, Suchan said, thinking, I was wondering why these people were shouting and jumping up and down just now. It turns out that they're all afraid. What a loser. Seeing that Suchan's expression didn't change, Li Yundong snickered in his heart. Let's see how scared you will be later. Li Yundong had played with the space shuttle before, so he knew how exciting it was. Even ordinary men couldn't stand it, let alone a delicate little girl like Suchan. After the DJ in the control room influenced the mood of the tourists, the space shuttle was suddenly launched. The 4 rows of people were bounced dozens of meters high in the air in 2 or 3 seconds, and then quickly fell. This kind of instantaneous rise and then sudden weightlessness made Li Yundong feel that his heart was in his throat, as if it would jump out at any time. Although he had succeeded in qi refining, no matter how much a person cultivated qi, it was impossible to break through the limits of the physical body unless he could reach the 8th realm of Jinshin. What a person's physical body felt, even a great cultivator would still feel this kind of feeling faithfully. It would never surpass the physical body because of the strength of one's mind. When the space shuttle fell crazily, the tourists were all screaming in horror and excitement, one after another like pigs being slaughtered. Even Li Yundong couldn't help but shout. When it completely stopped, Li Yundong, who was satisfied, looked to the side and saw Suchan sitting in her seat in a daze. Li Yundong snickered to himself. The little girl is scared silly. Li Yundong reached out and waved his hand in front of the little girl's eyes. Hey, wake up, it's over. Suchan was stunned. What? Is it over? Her calm expression almost made Li Yundong fall off his seat. What do you mean it's over? Haven't you had enough? Suchan said, I haven't reacted yet. Are you crazy or what? Li Yundong asked, dismayed. He had been looking forward to the feeling of the little girl snuggling into his arms after being frightened, but now it seemed that she was simply a fool. No. Li Yundong was very unwilling and asked, do you want to do it again? Suchan had already jumped off her seat. After thinking for a moment, she walked over and said, okay. Li Yundong quickly grabbed her and said, wait. Go line up first. The 2 of them lined up again. Li Yundong wanted to make the little girl cry, so he patiently told her how to enjoy the game. However, Suchan still had a blank look on her face, as if she had no idea what was so exciting about this thing. Li Yundong was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood, but he was unwilling to give up. He pulled Suchan to sit down again. Fortunately, this time Suchan began to feel a little interested. When she came down, she took Li Yundong's hand and kept saying, hurry up, I want more. Li Yundong faintly felt that something was wrong, but he didn't think too much about it. He muttered in his heart, can a man like me lose to a little girl? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Okay, I'll risk my life to accompany her. Li Yundong patted his chest heroically and made a decision that he would regret for the rest of his life. Suchan had never played this kind of game before. She had been guarding her Lingtai, consolidating her Dantian with qi, and her internal organs were as stable as gold soup. Naturally, it was impossible for her to feel any excitement when she was weightless. But after playing a few times after Li Yundong's reminder, she let go of her Lingtai and stopped using her qi to stabilize her internal organs. Suddenly, the strong sense of weightlessness made Suchan excited. This time Li Yundong was in trouble. The little girl pulled Li Yundong to play with the space shuttle 7 times in one go. Li Yundong felt that his stomach was in his throat, and he was about to vomit at any time. Good girl, you're good. Li Yundong forcefully suppressed the rolling qi in his chest, his face slightly pale. You're not afraid at all? Suchan had long been able to fly, so why would she be afraid of this? She blinked her eyes and said, why should I be afraid? Li Yundong didn't know the little girl's background. He was very unwilling, so he gritted his teeth and said, okay, you win. I don't believe that you don't have any games that you're afraid of. As he said this, he took Suchan's hand and ran straight to the place where the roller coaster was. Because the roller coaster was in the amusement park, there were not as many people waiting in line as the space shuttle. As soon as Li Yundong and Suchan arrived, they got on the roller coaster. After fastening his seatbelt, Li Yundong said to Suchan with a fierce expression, don't cry later. Suchan made a face at him and said, just wait and see. Don't cry later. As soon as the roller coaster started, Li Yundong felt that the qi in his body began to become chaotic, and his temples were throbbing. Especially when climbing the slope, Li Yundong felt that the qi in his body was involuntarily surging to his brain, making him more and more nervous. Seeing him like this, Su Chan giggled and said, "Sir, are you nervous?" When Li Yundong heard this, his nose became crooked with anger. He forced himself to calm down and patted his chest. Just as he was about to speak, the roller coaster fell down like a stone falling from a cliff. Caught off guard, Li Yundong immediately let out an extremely tragic cry. Su Chan, who was beside him, laughed so hard that she trembled. After getting off the roller coaster, Li Yundong walked a few steps with his head heavy. He felt that his legs were soft, as if he was stepping on clouds. He patted his chest, forced a smile, and said self-deprecatingly, "Being heartless and skipping class is really retribution." Su Chan, who had jumped off the roller coaster, felt that the roller coaster was much more fun and exciting than the space shuttle. She pulled Li Yundong with excitement and said coquettishly, "Sir, play with me again. I want it, I want it." Li Yundong's face turned pale, but he pretended to be arrogant. He took a deep breath and said, "Okay, if you want it, I'll give it to you." This conversation was very unhealthy and made people fantasize. The male tourists next to them laughed in a low voice with bad intentions, and the female tourists all turned their faces away and snickered. After 3 rides, Li Yundong's face was as white as paper. He covered his mouth and retched, staggering as if he was drunk. However, Su Chan, who was beside him, was still in high spirits and full of energy. The little girl pulled Li Yundong and said in a sweet voice, "Play with me. One more time, just one more time." Li Yundong sat on the ground and shook his head like a rattle. "You said the same thing last time." No, absolutely not." The little girl pushed Li Yundong and said coquettishly, "No, I want it again." Li Yundong suddenly remembered a very old joke. What men loved to hear the most was, "I want it." What men were most afraid to hear was, "I want it again." Chapter 53. Seeing that Li Yundong didn't respond, Su Chan took out her trump card and said in a soft voice, "Sir, I want more." Li Yundong covered his face with his hand and wailed, "I can't afford it. If I give you more, I'll die. I don't even have the strength to sit up." Seeing that Li Yundong really couldn't sit up, Su Chan pulled him up with her hand and said, "Get up, get up. How can you do this? You said you were here to play with me. I haven't had enough yet." Li Yundong said to Su Chan with a pained expression, "My little lady, you played 8 times on the space shuttle, 13 times on the roller coaster, 21 times on the turntable, and 32 times on the rapids. I really can't stand it anymore. I played from morning to afternoon and didn't even have lunch. Aren't you tired?" Su Chan said coquettishly, "No, I'm not tired." Li Yundong shouted and fell heavily on the grass. "I'm tired. Since ancient times, there have only been tired cows, but no land that has been damaged by plowing." Su Chan understood the meaning behind his words and giggled. Her cheeks flushed red as she tried to hit him. "Nonsense. What are you talking about?" Li Yundong chuckled. Li Yundong put his arm around the girl's waist with a cheeky smile and said, "Girl, come here. You've played so many tricks with me, but you haven't tried the grass yet." Su Chan burst out laughing and jumped to the side. So annoying. So annoying. Get up. If you don't want to play, then don't. I'm starving." Li Yundong fell on the grass on his back and said shamelessly, "I won't get up. I won't get up even if you beat me to death." Su Chan bit her lip, and a mischievous and sly look flashed in her eyes. She broke a blade of grass and kept scratching Li Yundong's face. She giggled and said, "Will you get up or not?" Li Yundong looked like a dead pig that was afraid of boiling water. He said fearlessly, "I won't get up. As a man, I won't get up if I don't want to." The two of them played on the grass. The man was handsome, and the woman was charming. Naturally, they attracted the attention of many people. Some people heard their conversation and all covered their mouths to snicker. Su Chan had no choice but to throw the grass away and crouch down beside him. "What do I have to do to make you get up?" Li Yundong snickered inwardly, but his face was calm and composed. "You tortured me like this," he said. "It's up to you." The little girl thought for a moment with an embarrassed expression and tentatively said, "Shall I give you a massage?" Li Yundong flatly refused. "No. You want to bribe me with small favors? Dream on." Suchan pouted and said, "Then I'll carry you back." Li Yundong asked in surprise, "You can carry me on your back?" Suchan snorted, "Don't underestimate me." Li Yundong stretched out his hands and said with a smile, "Okay, I'll carry you on my back today. I can also enjoy the glory." Suchan didn't stand on ceremony. She squatted down and put Li Yundong on her back. Li Yundong exclaimed in surprise, "Oh, you really carried it? Not bad." He wanted to give Suchan some trouble, so he deliberately exerted more force. At this time, Li Yundong had achieved success in qi cultivation. His qi sank down, and his strength was more than 1,000 pounds. Although Suchan was also a cultivator, she couldn't stand such a prank. She immediately staggered. Suchan staggered and laughed loudly. "You're so annoying. Don't move. I can't carry you." The surrounding tourists all laughed when they saw Li Yundong, a big man, being carried by a delicate little beauty. The men with girlfriends all pointed at Li Yundong and said, "See? This is a real man. This is a good wife. You guys should learn from him." When these girlfriends heard this, they went crazy. They pulled their men's ears and pointed to the ground. "What? Squat down and carry me." Their words were clear and decisive. Obviously, they were used to giving orders for a long time. The male compatriots, who had been subdued for a long time, squatted down gloomily and carried their wives. For a moment, the women were full of pride, especially when their men passed by Li Yundong. They even made faces at Suchan as if to show off. Li Yundong, who was a big man but was carried by a beautiful woman, shouted heartlessly, Oh, they passed us." Suchan also shouted heartlessly, "Stop it. I'm falling behind." Li Yundong laughed and stopped messing around with Suchan. He waved his hand shamelessly and said, "Go. If you fall behind, you won't have food to eat when you get home." The tourists around them all felt a chill run down their spines when they heard this. Is he treating her like a child bride? This was the true definition of ruthlessly destroying a flower. Suchan panicked when she heard that. She sprinted forward. She was a delicate little girl, but she was running faster than a man who was carrying a woman on his back. Along the way, the eyes of the bystanders almost fell out of their sockets. Li Yundong was a man who was 175 meters tall, but he was running faster than a man who was carrying a woman on his back. Suchan ran with Li Yundong on her back. Before long, she had left everyone behind. Li Yundong laughed and patted Suchan on the head. Okay, put me down. If you don't put me down, I'm going to get beaten up by the crowd." Suchan had a childish temper and loved to play around. She had no idea what she had done just now. She giggled and said, "I won. I'm still the best." Li Yundong pinched the girl's nose affectionately. Okay. Of course you're the best. Well, to reward you, I'll treat you to ice cream." Suchan smiled. Okay. I want to eat the cone I had last time." Li Yundong said with a smile, "Okay, wait for me here. I'll be right there." Suchan was a little hesitant. Huh? Are you going to leave me here alone?" Li Yundong laughed. "Are you afraid that I'll leave you behind?" "I'll buy it over there, you silly girl." Li Yundong pointed at a nearby McDonald's, and Suchan relaxed. She smiled and waved at him. "Then hurry up," Li Yundong said. "Hurry up." Li Yundong smiled and turned around to leave. Suchan stood there, a sweet smile on her face. She stared at Li Yundong without blinking. Her days with this boy were always so happy and exciting. Even being away from him for a second was an unbearable pain. Suchan stood innocently at the entrance of the amusement park, her beauty causing the people around her to stop in their tracks in awe. A man in a suit and leather shoes saw Suchan, and his eyes widened in shock. He rushed to the flower shop next to the amusement park and bought a large bouquet of fresh flowers. Then, he approached Suchan and presented the bouquet with both hands. "Beautiful lady, you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Will you accept my flowers?" This was the first time Suchan had ever received flowers from someone. She looked at the man in confusion. "Who are you?" The man in the suit pulled out a business card and smiled. This is my business card. Suchan didn't even look at the card. She just stared at the man curiously. Who are you? Why are you giving me this? The man in the suit was wearing a Versace and a Vacheron Constantin watch. From his appearance, one could tell that he was a man who had always prided himself on being an elite. He felt very good about himself. He adjusted his collar, maintained a smile that he thought was perfect, and said, You will know who I am and what I do after seeing this. Oh, Suchan said. She took the business card and looked at it. There were a few golden words on the card. Chairman and CEO of Rowi International Capital Corporation, Rongguefa. As Rongguefa listened to the little lass recite his position and name word by word, he felt as if the gazes around him were filled with admiration and surprise. Every time the little lass recited a word, he would look left and right in a daze. When she finished reciting, his chin was raised high. His expression seemed to be saying, Come worship me. Come throw yourself into my arms, little beauty. The bystanders also watched coldly as this scene played out countless times in real life. The battle between money and love. How many women in real life had abandoned love in favor of bread? How many rich men had their arms around gold-digger girls, showing off their pride and arrogance to the world? Rongguefa had used his business card and money to open up a path for himself. God knew how many beautiful girls had fallen for him. The way he saw it, there was no woman in this world that couldn't be won over by money and fame. That was why his smile was so arrogant and insufferably arrogant. But Suchan's next words made his smile disappear. The little girl asked innocently, What's a chairman? What's a so? The bystanders burst into laughter. Rongguefa's eyes twitched. He thought to himself, Is this girl playing with me? But looking at Suchan, he felt that the girl's innocence didn't seem to be faking. He was very surprised. No way, there really is such a simple girl in this world. She's the best. I must hook her up. Rongguefa patiently explained the greatness of the chairman and the CEO. Then he heard Suchan say with a look of realization, Oh, it's the boss and the shopkeeper. Hey, why don't you just say it? After Suchan finished speaking, she patted Rongguefa on the shoulder casually and said, You do business? Not bad, you can be the boss and the shopkeeper. Not bad, not bad. The bystanders all burst into laughter. Rongguefa was furious in his heart. How dare she say I'm the shopkeeper? It's too old-fashioned, too vulgar. How dare she humiliate me like this? He was angry in his heart, but he had to maintain his elegance on his face. The smile on his face looked indescribably dry and ugly. You can't say that. Rongguefa suppressed his anger and said, My company is a multinational financial investment company, which controls billions of financial investments. It's not just about the boss and the shopkeeper. Suchan nodded as if she understood. Oh, then what do you do? Rongguefa proudly showed off again. Oh, me? I don't do much. Basically, I don't do much in the company. He wanted to say that he didn't do much, but he was afraid that Suchan would look down on him and think that he was incompetent, so he quickly added, Well, I basically do gold investment, fund investment, and currency investment. Suchan looked surprised, and her eyes showed a look of amazement. You can do everything? Everything. Rongguefa adjusted his collar and sighed. Yes, there's nothing I can't do. So, basically, I'm very busy every day and I have to spend hundreds of thousands of yuan per second. Suchan exclaimed, Ah? Then don't you also do the work of the boss, the shopkeeper, and the waiters? 3 in 1. Don't you get tired? The bystanders around burst into laughter, each of them convulsing with laughter. Rongguefa was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. He stared at Suchan and thought, This girl is deliberately messing with me, isn't she? ===. Chapter 54. A few people giggled. Why would he come to an amusement park if it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars a second? Then someone else giggled. He's here to invest. He's from a multinational international finance company. Where do you think all the snack bars around this amusement park come from? Hey, a big boss like him coming here to make such a small investment? That's impossible, isn't it? Hee, didn't you hear that? The boss, the shopkeeper, and the waiter's jobs were all taken care of together. It's tough. Could this be the legendary shell company? Rongguofa felt like vomiting blood in his heart. He glared angrily at the sarcastic crowd, then turned back to Su-chan and said patiently, Miss, I haven't asked for your name yet. Can you tell me your name? She's Su-chan. She's my girlfriend. Li Yundong walked over with 2 ice cream cones in his hands. May I know what you're here for? Rongguofa turned around and saw a boy standing in front of him. His clothes were ordinary, but he had a dignified air about him. His eyes shone brightly, and Rongguofa felt ashamed of his own inferiority. You're her boyfriend? Rongguofa stammered. He turned around and looked at Su-chan. Is he your boyfriend? Su-chan took the ice cream cone from Li Yundong's hand and licked it. Then she smiled sweetly at him. No. Li Yundong's expression changed slightly. Rongguofa burst into laughter. I was wondering why a beautiful girl like you would fall for a poor boy like him. Su-chan shot Rongguofa a sideways glance, then brought the ice cream cone to Li Yundong's mouth. He's my boss, she said sweetly. Boss, I'll treat you to an ice cream cone. Li Yundong was overjoyed. His anger turned to joy, and he said proudly, well, my girl made me very happy today. I'll do you a favor and have a bite. After that, he took a bite out of the ice cream cone in Su-chan's hand and burst into hearty laughter like a villain who had achieved his goal. What am I supposed to eat? You're so annoying. Su-chan grabbed the ice cream in Li Yundong's hand and took a big bite out of it, almost as if she was taking revenge on Li Yundong. Su-chan, on the other hand, had small, cherry-like lips. How could she gulp down half an ice cream like Li Yundong? She took a bite and her face was covered in blood. Li Yundong pointed at Su-chan's face and laughed out loud. But after laughing twice, he swallowed the cold air that made his chest feel stuffy. He couldn't help but grimace and beat his chest. Su-chan burst out laughing when she saw Li Yundong's reaction, but the ice cream in her mouth was so cold that her mouth was numb. She took a deep breath, not forgetting to tease Li Yundong. Serves you right, retribution. Li Yundong felt as if his chest had frozen. He choked and rolled his eyes. How could he speak? The two of them made everyone around them laugh. Rongguofa's face darkened. He didn't know what to do and he didn't know what to do. If it was any other person, they would have retreated in the face of difficulties. However, Rongguo had a very high opinion of himself. This amusement park was near a luxurious area where the rich lived. He wasn't here to play, but to return to his mansion. However, when he saw Su-chan, he was shocked. He just wanted to go up to her and ask for her phone number before he slowly planned to do something else. But Li Yundong's appearance made him feel a sense of crisis and inferiority. Rongguofa knew that he was no longer young. He was no longer in the prime of his youth. The only thing he could rely on and show off was his wealth and experience. Based on Rongguofa's experience, there was no woman in the world who wasn't vain. There was no woman who couldn't be swayed by a check. Rongguofa sneered and took out a checkbook from his pocket. How much do you want? He asked. When she heard Rongguofa's voice, she swallowed the ice cream in her mouth with all her might. As a result, she was so cold that she jumped up and down on the spot. What? She asked with difficulty. What? What did you say? Rongguofa had seen countless women, but he had never seen such a pure, beautiful, and innocent girl. He liked her even more. He took out a pen from his pocket and said, I said, how much money do you want to leave this boy? When Su-chan heard this, she suddenly became furious. Her 2 willowy eyebrows rose, and she said coldly, are you very rich? Of course. Rongguofa said proudly. Everyone in the world has a price. As long as you can offer it, you can buy and sell anyone. The intimate relationship between Li Yundong and Su-chan made the surrounding tourists love and envy them. Even if some of them had their own ideas, they were very self-aware and didn't want to ruin the relationship between the young couple. But when they heard Rongguofa's words, they all became angry and cursed. What's so great about having some money? Take your money and save it to buy yourself a coffin. However, Rongguofa turned a deaf ear to the scolding next to him. He glanced at Li Yundong again and said, how much are you willing to give her to me? These words made Li Yundong want to punch Rongguofa in the face immediately. Su-chan knew that at this time, the Jindan Jinqi in his body was strong and magnificent, and his qi and blood were incredibly vigorous. His temperament had not been tempered, so he was easily angry and irritable. If there was a disagreement, he would have the urge to punch. She didn't want him to get into trouble because of this and disturb their cultivation, so she pulled his arm and shook her head gently at him. After stopping him, Suchan said to Rongguofa, "Let me ask you, how many mouths do you have?" Rongguofa was stunned. "One." "Why?" Suchan asked again, "How many pairs of feet do you have?" Rongguofa frowned and said, "One pair? Why are you asking this?" Suchan asked again, "How many bodies do you have?" Rongguofa said impatiently, "Nonsense, of course I only have one. Since you know that you only have one mouth, one pair of feet, and one body, then you should know that no matter how rich you are, you can only eat a bowl of rice, wear a pair of shoes, and wear a set of clothes." Suchan said with a mocking smile, "Since you know that you only have one mouth, one pair of feet, and one body, then you should know that no matter how rich you are, you can only eat a bowl of rice, wear a pair of shoes, and wear a set of clothes. You're standing in front of me. Just because you're rich, you can eat an extra ice cream cone, wear an extra pair of shoes, and wear an extra set of clothes?" Rongguofa's face turned red and he argued, "But in this world, the same things have different levels. I can wear high-end brands." He pointed at Li Yundong and said, "He can only wear cheap goods." Suchan sneered and said, "Is there anything more to your high-end brands than Yundong's? Is it an extra sleeve? Or a few extra buttons? Let me tell you, in this world, there is no high or low, only good and evil, beauty and ugliness." As soon as he said this, the surrounding people all cheered loudly. Some of the boys stared at Suchan with glowing eyes and applauded her with all their might. The older men with their female companions sighed and thought to themselves, "This girl is beautiful, but what's even more remarkable is that she's so pure and noble in this kind of society. If I had a woman like her by my side, I would be willing to lose 20 years of my life." Rongguofa's outlook on life and values had been seriously challenged. Like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, he jumped up and down and said, "What's the point of saying that? Can it bring you luxurious clothes and delicacies? Can it pay your rent and mortgage? The entire financial circle of Southeast Asia will be shaken by my order. What can this poor boy do?" Suchan laughed as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. In the eyes of a cultivator like her, all the things in the world added up could not compare to the word cultivation. No matter how powerful an official was, even if he became an emperor with an order, the divine land would be plunged into misery and blood would flow. However, such a powerful emperor still had to ask not the common people, but ghosts and gods. No matter how rich a businessman was, even if he was like Tao Zhugong, he would still spend a huge sum of money and even destroy his family's wealth to join Buddhism and Taoism, just to seek peace and longevity. The officials in power had dominated the world for decades, but once the situation changed, the door would change from a crowded market to a deserted one. Once the lamp ran out of oil, no matter how powerful they would be nothing more than a pile of yellow soil. Emperor Qin Wu Songzu of the Tang sect and Genghis Khan, what kind of people were they? But they had all turned into a pile of yellow soil. And those who were as rich as a country, no matter how rich they were and how powerful they were, it was impossible for them to pass on their wealth to the fourth generation. It was the curse of the rich that wealth could not last for 3 generations. What's more, no matter how rich a person was, they could not escape the cycle of life, death, illness, and death. However, cultivators could transcend life and death, transcending all of this. Power and wealth were just fleeting clouds in their eyes. Throughout the dynasties, how many people have been famous, how many have been powerful, how many have been as rich as a country, how many have laughed at the world, and how many have not lived forever? Suchan laughed and couldn't help but think of a sentence she had once seen her master write on the wind-dust stone. After Suchan stopped laughing, she pointed at Li Yundong and said to Rongguofa, "You must remember his name. His name is Li Yundong and he is my partner. Although he is a nobody now, I promise you that in less than 2 years, his name will be famous all over the world. At that time, what you can do, he can do without any effort, but what he can do, you will never be able to do." Suchan's words were sonorous and powerful, and the people around her were stunned. They couldn't help but look at Li Yundong, as if they couldn't understand why this girl was so sure that Li Yundong would have such great achievements in the future. Rongguofa had a strange look on his face. He wanted to laugh at the girl's arrogant words, but Su Chan's face was full of love and solemnity, and he couldn't bring himself to say it. He used a lot of strength and said bitterly, "Why do you say that?" Su Chan walked to Li Yundong's side and took his hand. She smiled. "Because he has me by his side." Li Yundong looked at Su Chan in a daze, his chest heaving up and down, and his heart surging. He almost cried. With a girl like this by his side, even if the sky fell down, what was there to be afraid of? The young man also smiled and took Su Chan's hand. Their fingers were tightly intertwined, and they no longer looked at Rong Guofa, who was in a daze, or at the crowd around them. Shoulder to shoulder, the two of them walked away. I went out to eat with Yezi, but it rained heavily and I was delayed. Everyone, I'm sorry. Chapter 55. Su Chan giggled. Really? Li Yundong chuckled. Yeah. Do you think a grown man like me is a good-for-nothing for shedding tears? Su Chan climbed onto Li Yundong's back. Of course not. If you're a good-for-nothing, then everyone else in this world is a bunch of cowards. Li Yundong laughed. You want me to carry you? Fine girl. You made me proud today, so I'll carry you home today. Su Chan rested her chin on Li Yundong's broad shoulder. You said it. Li Yundong chuckled. Li Yundong laughed. You've already climbed onto my back. How can I not carry you? Enough chit-chat. Let's go home and eat. While the two of them were fooling around, Tiannan University was already in a frenzy. Where's Li Yundong? Feng Na was frantically searching for Li Yundong backstage. The show is going to start in an hour. Why isn't he here yet? Feng Na spotted Sun Li backstage helping a classmate with her makeup. She grabbed her and yelled, Where's Li Yundong? Sun Li froze. He's not here. Feng Na looked like she was about to explode. You're the class rep. Why are you asking me? I called him today, Sun Li said. He said he'd be here. The thought of Li Yundong made Sun Li furious. She pulled a female classmate over to her side. Have you seen Li Yundong? Sun Li asked. The girl shook her head. That hero is elusive. How are we supposed to know? Sun Li asked a few other classmates, but all of them shook their heads and said they didn't know. Sun Li stomped her foot anxiously. How could that bastard stand me up on something so important? I saw Li Yundong this morning. A girl who was passing by suddenly said. Where? Sun Li and Feng Na were overjoyed. He was at the school gate with his girlfriend. I think he got into a fight with the teacher. And then? Sun Li asked. And then? The girl shrugged. And then he got into a fight with the teacher and left with his girlfriend, right? Feng Na put a hand to her forehead and sighed. I really lost to him. If this fellow is an emperor, he must be a fatuous ruler who loves beauties but not his country. Sun Li scolded, Ba. He wants to be the emperor? You have no sense of class honor at all. Feng Na laughed. What does being an emperor have to do with class honor? Sun Li glared at Feng Na and handed the phone back to her. This is your business. Why are you calling him yourself? Feng Na quickly smiled and said, Beauty, can you do me a favor? He's a student of your class. Hurry up and contact them. It might not be too late to come now. Sun Li pocketed her phone and dialed a number. But after waiting for a long time, no one picked up. After calling a few more times, Sun Li was so angry that she wanted to smash her phone. This bastard. Did he buy a phone to use as a landline? Why don't you bring it with you? Feng Na covered her face and said with a wry smile, What should I do? We're dead meat this time. The two girls were sighing, and from time to time, they would denounce Li Yundong. Suddenly, a voice rang out. What are you two doing here? What happened to Li Yundong? Sun Li and Feng Na heard a man's voice. Both of them jumped in fright and turned their heads away. Feng Na took a closer look. It was Teacher Lu from the Academic Affairs Office, who had wanted to recruit a strong man last time. She widened her eyes and stammered, Teacher Lu, this is backstage where the girls change clothes. Why are you here? The girls who were changing backstage hurriedly put on their clothes. Some of them gasped in shock, while others cursed under their breaths. You old pervert, Mr. Lu said. He looked straight ahead, but from the corner of his eyes, he kept sneaking glances at the scantily clad girls. I'm just here to see how your preparations are coming along. What were you guys talking about just now? What did Li Yundong do this time? Feng Na asked tentatively. Mr. Liu, nothing happened to Li Yundong. What did he do to piss you off? Mr. Liu had only intended to sneak a peek at Feng Na and Sun Li, but when he heard Feng Na and Sun Li denouncing Li Yundong, he couldn't help but chime in. This student doesn't know how to respect his teachers at all, and he doesn't know how to follow the school's rules, bringing shady people into the school all day long, and even insulting the teachers in front of them. I'm going to kick him out today. Huh. Feng Na nearly fell to the ground. How many days have I spent planning this show? I worked so hard to persuade Li Yundong to replace Zhao Yujian, and I begged and begged Zhou Qin to help Li Yundong solve the problem with Director Qian. But now, with one simple sentence, this old man has negated all of my hard work. Feng Na's eyes widened. She looked like she was about to explode. Sun Li knew a little about Feng Na, so she quickly pulled Feng Na back and said to Mr. Liu, Mr. Liu, Li Yundong is the main actor of the Taekwondo club tonight. If he's not here, the show can't go on. Mr. Liu's heart tightened, but he refused to back down. What do you mean can't go on? Without Butcher Zhang, we're going to have to eat pigs with fur? We can't let a student like him embarrass Tiannan University on stage. Is there no one else in Tiannan University? Feng Na exploded. Mr. Liu, do you have any idea how long I've been preparing for this show? Do you know that principal could pick this show? Do you know that even the deputy mayor mentioned this show? Gong Zizhen had also said that talent should not be restricted to one style. Li Yundong had 1,000 faults and 1,000 faults, but he also had his own skills. Without him, this show really couldn't go on stage. Besides, as a teacher, you shouldn't talk about your own students like that, right? Mr. Liu's face turned green and white after being scolded by Feng Na. His lips trembled. He flicked his sleeves and ran out angrily. Outrageous, outrageous, he said. When Mr. Liu was abusing his position to avenge a personal grudge, he had never thought that Li Yundong would have a performance tonight, let alone that his performance would be so important. He was so shocked and panicked that he accidentally stepped on a flight of stairs. With a yelp, he tumbled down the stairs. Ouch! The girls in the backstage locker room all laughed out loud. Good fall. That old pervert. His eyes were on my chest the moment he walked in. Fall to your death. Sun Li sighed. Look at you now. If Li Yundong didn't make it, you'd have offended a teacher. Feng Na felt a twinge of regret after her outburst, but she was still as stubborn as ever. Humph. He can't fire me, can he? Sun Li, call Li Yundong again. By the way, doesn't he live on campus? Sun Li sighed as she dialed Li Yundong's number. He's never lived on campus. Besides, even if he used to live on campus now that he has such a beautiful girlfriend, do you think he would? Do you know where he lives then? Feng Na asked. Sun Li shook her head. That guy has always been a loner in class. No one knows where he lives and he's always been a loner. Hey, hold on. The call connected. Hello? Hello? Is this Li Yundong? Sun Li yelled into the phone. Yundong, someone's talking to me. A girl's voice came from the other end of the line. Li Yundong's voice came from the other end of the line. Can you ask who it is? Yundong, the girl said, giggling. Who are you? I'm his classmate. My name is Sun Li said. Can you put him on the phone? Sun Li and Feng Na looked at each other. Then Feng Na said, put it on speaker, I'll listen. Sun Li and Feng Na looked at each other. As soon as Sun Li pressed the button, she heard the sound of running water. Then, Li Yundong's voice came from the other end of the line. Hey, I'm taking a shower. What are you doing in here? Don't come any closer, you idiot. That thing will break if it touches water. Feng Na and Sun Li were furious, but they burst into laughter when they heard Li Yundong's voice. The girls who were putting on makeup and changing clothes next to them also crowded around them. It's your classmate, Suchan said. You think I want to come in here and watch you take a shower? So ugly. So hairy. So hairy. The girls around the line burst into laughter when they heard Suchan's words. Li Yundong's voice grew more and more surprised. Hey, why is there laughter on the other end of the line? Hey, I'm scared of you. Get out. Hey, you idiot. Give me the phone and get out. Feng Na and Sun Li laughed until Li Yundong's voice came from the other end of the line. Hey, Li Yundong. Sun Li yelled into the other end of the line. It's you again, class rep? Li Yundong's voice was gloomy. What do you mean it's me again? Sun Li said angrily. Do you know what's going on at our school tonight? Oh, Li Yundong said. It's just an exchange party with some Pin or Fania or something. Feng Na could not hold it in any longer. She yelled into the phone, You still remember? Hurry up and come to school. I want to, Li Yundong said casually. But someone doesn't want me to come. You bastard. Feng Na yelled. I just had an argument with that Mr. Liu. If you don't want me to have another argument with you, then get over here. Li Yundong froze. You had an argument with that teacher? Why? Isn't it because of you? Sun Li asked. Because of me? Li Yundong asked curiously. Feng Na knew that Mr. Liu wouldn't let you into the school, so she had an argument with him. Li Yundong felt a deep sense of respect for Feng Na. I can't thank you enough for your help, Miss Feng. I'll come over as soon as I'm done showering. Feng Na's mood improved a little. Stop showering. Why do you have to be so clean? At least let me wash off the soap bubbles. Li Yundong yelled. Feng Na laughed. Save your soap bubbles. You'll look even more hairy if you wash them off. Chapter 56. However, it was as if the heavens were against him. They were stuck in traffic jams and red lights. Feng Na and Sun Li were as anxious as ants on a hot pan, running around in circles like ants on a hot tin roof. What do we do? What do we do? The next show is coming up. Feng Na was so nervous that her palms were sweaty. She pulled open the curtain backstage and looked outside. She saw that the school auditorium was filled with people. The school leaders and city leaders were all sitting upright in the front row. Call again. Feng Na said anxiously. Sun Li chimed in, I just called. There was a traffic jam. Feng Na pulled at her hair. Oh my God. You're not messing with me, are you? Chang Cheng, who had slipped backstage, comforted her. Don't worry. We'll make it. As soon as she finished speaking, the female teacher in charge of program planning walked over and waved the program list. Hey, how's the preparation for your Taekwondo club's program coming along? Feng Na, Sun Li, and Chang Cheng looked at each other. Teacher Ma, there's still one student who hasn't made it yet. When Teacher Ma heard that, he immediately flew into a rage. What? You're going on stage in 2 minutes? He's not here yet? Are you kidding me? Who's not here? Which faculty? Which cohort? This is simply preposterous. What nonsense. Teacher Ma, Sun Li explained hurriedly. There was a traffic jam on the way. Is that even a reason? Teacher Ma said. Today is the most important day since the founding of the university. As a student of Tiannan University, I can't believe he ran away. That's ridiculous. What's his name? Feng Na saw that the situation was not good. She glanced around and suddenly saw Zhuang Hui, who was gloating at her not far away. She had an idea and said, Teacher Ma, our people will be here soon. Why don't you let the other programs take over first? Teacher Ma scolded her for a while, then turned to Zhuang Hui. Zhuang Hui, move your program forward. Hurry up and get ready to go on stage. Zhuang Hui was shocked and angry. Teacher Ma, our program is the finale. The veins on Teacher Ma's neck were bulging. What finale? Our program is about to collapse. Hurry up and cut the crap. Why don't all of you not go on stage? I'll let the host announce the end of the evening party. Let's all die together, okay? Zhuang Hui panted and glared at Feng Na, but Feng Na looked away, pretending not to see it. Zhuang Hui threw the makeup box in her hand and said to the partners around her, Get ready to go on stage. Teacher Ma watched as Zhuang Hui and the others went on stage when the host was announcing. She said coldly, That student of yours had better hurry up. Otherwise, humph. With that, she flicked her sleeves and left. Sun Li and Feng Na looked at each other. Feng Na sighed. What should we do now? Sun Li clenched her fists and stomped her feet. That Li Yundong is such a jerk. But right at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Hey, I worked so hard to get here. How dare you scold me behind my back? Li Yundong stood at the entrance of the backstage and said loudly. Sun Li and Feng Na turned to look at him. They immediately pounced on him and started kicking and punching him. You bastard! You idiot! You still know how to show up? At that moment, the other members of the Taekwondo club who had been waiting anxiously for Li Yundong to show up backstage cheered. Even the upperclassmen who hated Li Yundong's flamboyant behavior were beaming with joy. Hurry up and get changed, Feng Na said, grabbing a Taekwondo outfit from the side and tossing it at Li Yundong. Li Yundong hugged the Taekwondo outfit and was shoved into the changing room. After changing, he straightened his collar and looked at the color of the belt around his waist. Black belt? It's Zhao Yujian's, Feng Na said casually. I'm borrowing it. Li Yundong laughed. He'll probably die of anger if he sees this. Sun Li said, I don't know if he'll die of anger or not, but I do know that you've pissed us all off. Li Yundong chuckled. Didn't I make it in time? He waved at Su Chan, gesturing for her to find a seat and wait for him. Su Chan smiled at him and sat down obediently in a corner of the room. By then, Feng Na and the rest of the girls had calmed down and were quietly waiting for Li Yundong to go on stage. Meanwhile, the other girls were sneaking glances at Li Yundong. They felt that he looked extraordinarily masculine and handsome in his black and white Taekwondo uniform. They started whispering to each other. Hey, I heard that hairy men are really strong. What do you mean? Hey, stop acting tough. You'll get struck by lightning if you act tough. Stop playing dumb. Just look at him and you can tell that he's strong. That eyebrow, that look in his eyes, tsk. It's like he's going to eat someone alive. I wonder if his girlfriend can take it. Hey, you little slut. You've fallen for him, haven't you? His girlfriend can't take it anymore. Why don't you volunteer yourself to help him out? You're the one who should help others out. Hee. Having fun with others is having fun with yourself. After saying this, the surrounding girls all giggled. The girls laughed and caused a commotion. They thought that Li Yundong wouldn't hear them because they were whispering. But little did they know that Li Yundong had mastered qi refinement. His hearing and eyes were sharp, and he could hear every word they said. Li Yundong didn't know what to do with these bold and unrestrained women. His face was burning, but he muttered in his heart, I just kissed my girl. I didn't do anything else. Just as he was grumbling to himself, Feng Na nudged him from behind. Hey, it's time to go on stage, she said. Li Yundong's heart skipped a beat. He trotted onto the stage from backstage. As soon as he entered the stage, he was greeted by applause, cheers, and whistles. The colorful lights on the stage shone on him, making it hard for him to open his eyes. When he finally got used to the lights and opened his eyes, he saw a sea of wriggling heads below him. In the front row, there were more than a dozen blonde foreigners. There were men and women, old and young. They must be the students and teachers of the University of Pennsylvania, who had come to Tiannan University for an exchange. Li Yundong's heart was thumping wildly under the gaze of thousands of pairs of eyes below the stage. Fortunately, he was no longer the ordinary otaku he used to be. Otherwise, his legs would have turned to jelly. Li Yundong took a deep breath and stood calmly in front of the members of the Taekwondo club. He bowed to the audience. The students and teachers below the stage were sizing up the handsome, masculine boy. The foreigners of the University of Pennsylvania were also staring at Li Yundong curiously and whispering to each other. Suddenly, a wooden stick hit Li Yundong's head from behind. But Li Yundong didn't seem to feel it at all. The people below the stage saw it clearly and let out a cry of surprise at the same time. But just as the stick was about to hit Li Yundong's head, Li Yundong suddenly squatted down, spun his feet, twisted his body, and hit the waist and abdomen of the attacker behind him with his elbow. Not only did he dodge the stick, but he also fought back. Oh! There was a burst of praise from the audience. Just as they were about to applaud Li Yundong's response, the students of the Taekwondo club around him suddenly shouted and picked up the wooden sticks in their hands to hit Li Yundong. At this time, the teachers and students below the stage couldn't help but feel nervous. In their eyes, there were wooden sticks in all directions. How could Li Yundong dodge? But Li Yundong didn't dodge. His legs flew up and down like a tomahawk, and his arms swung like a meteor. Footblade, front chop, side chop, back hanging kick, double leg kick, air somersault roundhouse kick. One move after another was used. On the stage, the sound of wooden sticks breaking could be heard continuously. The audience below the stage could only see two long legs in white trousers so fast that they were almost too much to take in. Every time a white shadow flashed, a wooden stick would be broken. Li Yundong's legs were so fast and fierce that some people below the stage couldn't even tell which leg he was using. At this time, everyone below the stage realized that this was the highlight of the program. They all applauded and cheered loudly. Every time Li Yundong broke a wooden stick, they cheered loudly. When the last wooden stick was about to hit Li Yundong suddenly kicked his opponent's hand, sending the stick tumbling in the air. Li Yundong didn't even look at the tumbling stick. With a stomp of his foot, his body seemed to soar into the air like he was riding on a cloud. With a kick, he broke the wooden stick that was tumbling in the air with a loud crack. This kick instantly caused the audience to gasp in surprise. Even Zhou Yu and his Shixiang Huafei, who had been watching coldly from the sidelines, were moved. As the saying goes, amateurs watch for the excitement, while experts watch for the artistry. Li Yundong fought one against many on the stage. His kicks were clean and full of power, drawing cheers from the audience. Zhou Yu and Huafei, on the other hand, looked at him with disdain. This kind of wooden stick kicking performance was prearranged. As long as one had the strength to break a wooden stick and was skilled in leg kung fu, anyone could perform it. But Li Yundong's kick just now had broken a wooden stick that was tumbling in the air. That was not a simple feat. Previously, the wooden stick had been held by a human hand, so it was easy to break it with a kick. However, the wooden stick that was rolling in the air had no place to exert any force, but Li Yundong had kicked it and broken it with one kick. What kind of terrifying explosive power was that? Zhou Yu and Huafei exchanged a look, their eyes filled with shock. That's impossible. Zhou Yu thought for a moment, then said decisively, the wooden stick must have been broken and then stained. Otherwise, even master wouldn't be able to break a wooden stick that's less than a meter long that's tumbling in the air. Huafei shook his head slowly. Not necessarily. Judging from the strength of his kick and the sound of the wooden stick breaking, it doesn't seem like it was faked. Zhou Yu's eyes were filled with worry. Then Shixiang, I think we shouldn't go up there? Huafei smiled coldly and adjusted the diamond bracelet on his arm. So what if he's strong? Is an ox strong? Since when have you ever seen an ox eat a wolf? Just you wait, I'm going to give him an internal injury and turn him into a cripple in 3 years. Zhou Yu relaxed and sneered at Li Yundong, who was standing on the stage like a star. The teachers and students in the school's auditorium were cheering loudly. Even the foreigners from the distant Pacific Ocean were shocked by Li Yundong's performance. They stood up one by one, clapping and whistling. Chapter 57. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the highlight of tonight's exchange, the hostess announced in a passionate voice. The female host said in a passionate voice, Student Huifei from Tiannan University Wushu Club and Li Yundong from Taekwondo Club will be giving us a live performance. Then she translated Huang Huifei's words in English. The foreigners in the audience cheered excitedly. The college students in the auditorium had only ever seen this kind of sparring in movies. They had never seen it in real life. Therefore, they also cheered excitedly. The atmosphere was even livelier than before. Teacher Ma, who was in charge of the program backstage, was secretly delighted. Fortunately, this performance was the finale. Otherwise, if they had waited until the end of the program and then performed the song and dance, how could they have achieved such an effect? Although Zhuang Hui was not convinced, she had a good impression of Li Yundong, who was full of masculinity. Especially after watching Li Yundong's performance backstage just now, her eyes had been filled with stars. Now that she heard that there was going to be an actual battle, she was so excited that she clapped and cheered. Her dance partners rolled their eyes and shook their heads inwardly, thinking, she's really a man who doesn't care about his partner. After the hostess introduced Huang Huafei to the stage, Huang Huafei took a step forward and leaped onto the stage, which was more than a meter high. This immediately caused these foreigners who were very curious about Chinese kung fu to whistle loudly. A blonde foreigner who was clapping in his seat said to a blonde girl next to him, Chris, didn't you say that you know everything about China? Can you tell what kind of kung fu this guy practices? Although Chris had long wavy blonde hair, her face was small and delicate, and her facial features were exquisite. Her appearance was very much in line with the aesthetics of the East, especially her deep-set eyes, high nose, and skin as white as snow. She was full of exotic charm, attracting many men's attention. Chris seemed to be used to this kind of attention. She clapped her hands and said to her partner, "Tom, you practice kung fu yourself. Why are you asking me? Are you testing me? Well, look at the iron ring on this guy's arm. That means he practices iron wire boxing." Tom asked, "Iron wire punch? Never heard of it." Chris teased, "You call yourself a kung fu fan? You won the Pennsylvania State Martial Arts Championship for nothing." Iron wire boxing is a popular boxing technique in Cantonese China. You know Hong Quan, right? Tom gasped. Hong Quan? Professor Zhao Jiling taught him? Oh my God, he practices Hong Quan? Oh my God, why wasn't I the one who fought him? The owner of the tailor shop who practiced iron wire punch in the movie Kung Fu was Zhao Jiling, who was once as famous as Bruce Lee in the American martial arts world. Zhao Jiling taught Hong Quan in the United States. He was so famous that everyone in the American martial arts world knew him. Chris knew that this companion of hers was a huge fighting fan, who loved all the fighting techniques in this world. What he loved the most was to spar with people of all schools. Chris knew that her partner was a Kung Fu fan. Kung Fu fan. He loved all in Huafei's and Kung Fu of martial fighting Kung battle. And in Kung Fu and Yang. No one knew where Tiannan University had heard about this, but they had given special permission for Li Yundong and Bai Huafei to perform on stage. Chris shook her head and said, "Iron thread fist is the highest type of fist in Hong Quan. Together with the tiger taming fist and the tiger and crane double forms, they are known as the three treasures of Hong Quan. You might not be his match." Tom shrugged his shoulders disapprovingly. "Not necessarily. However, Chris, you really are an expert in China. You actually know so much. Amazing. It's so good to have a grandmother of Chinese descent." Chris didn't comment. She just looked at the stage. "Tom, you're an expert. Who do you think will win?" Without thinking, Tom said, "Iron wire fist." The corners of Chris's mouth curled up. Clearly, Tom's guess was the same as hers. She asked why. Tom said, "Look at this guy who practices iron wire punch. The deltoids on his back are bulging, and the muscles on his arms are like steel bars. God, they are all tendons. The explosive power is terrifying. Bruce Lee's body was full of such muscles. Plus he has iron rings on his arms. If he gets hit, it's going to hurt like hell." Tom pointed at Li Yundong. "Look at the guy on the other side. He looked good, but except for that last kick, the rest of his kung fu was just fancy moves. Plus, there's no killing intent in this guy's eyes. He obviously hasn't experienced any real combat. I think he's going to lose." Chris secretly agreed with Tom's judgment, but she smiled and said, "Maybe the Chinese have already arranged the outcome of this match. Let's not make wild guesses." "You're the one who's supposed to guess," Tom muttered. "And now you're the one who's supposed to guess again. As the president of the student council, you sure have a lot of privileges." Chris smiled at Tom's grumbling but didn't say anything. She just kept her eyes on the stage. On the stage, as soon as Bai Huafei stepped onto the stage, he straightened his legs, bent his right knee, clenched his right hand into a fist, and formed a palm with his left hand. Then, he lifted his palm to his right chest and under his armpit, as if he was saluting with cupped hands. This move was the iron thread fists, greeting the bridge hand. The greeting gesture meant saluting and opening the fist, and the hanging feet meant bowing and paying respect. It seemed to be a polite and courteous move, but in fact this move could be used to attack and defend. It was one of the strong moves of Hong Quan. Li Yundong didn't know the secret of this move. Seeing Bai Luofei's politeness, he followed suit and bowed. But when Bai Luofei saw Li Yundong bowing, his eyes suddenly widened. He stomped his right foot, and with a snap he leaped into the air and kicked at Li Yundong's head with his left foot. Because of Li Yundong's previous experience of being ambushed, the audience thought that this move had been prearranged. Not a single person was worried. Instead, they applauded Bai Luofei's agility. Li Yundong's chi was so strong that he heard the sound of the wind rushing toward him. He subconsciously took a step back and quickly retreated. Bai Luofei knew that Li Yundong's strength was terrifying, so he wouldn't let his opponent off easily. He twisted his hands and clenched them into fists. "Ha! He shouted and then immediately punched upward, aiming for Li Yundong's chest and head. This was the iron wire punches, two tigers' hidden steps. When he threw out these two punches, the iron rings on his forearms surged. Coupled with his shout, it was truly a ferocious attack with an astonishing momentum. Li Yundong had never practiced martial arts before. Although he had the Jindan's qi in his body, and he had fought with a gangster with a long knife, those gangsters were not martial artists. But those gangsters were not martial artists, and Li Yundong could barely be considered a person who knew kung fu at the time. Those who had kung fu fighting those who did not have kung fu was no different from shooting a human target. As a result, sparring with Bai Luofei was a completely different experience. The first thing Li Yundong felt was the intense murderous aura emanating from Bai Huifei. Compared to Zhao Yujian, who was as gentle as a virgin, Li Yundong couldn't help but feel the murderous aura emanating from him. Li Yundong didn't know how to deal with such a fierce move, so he could only step back. Bai Luofei immediately retracted his fists after missing both of his punches. He took a step forward and raised his fists from his back to his chest. Then, he loosened his fingers and opened his fists to form a cutting palm. Like a sword, he slashed at Li Yundong's shoulders. At the same time he exhaled and shouted, "Double swords cutting the bridge." Bai Luofei's shout was so loud that the applause and cheers of the audience couldn't drown it out. The audience felt that he was like a pine when he was quiet, but when he moved, he was like a ferocious tiger. He truly had the demeanor of a martial arts master. These college students had never seen a real martial arts master like Bai Luofei before. They were so excited that they couldn't control themselves. Little did they know that a real fight was taking place on the stage. Tom, who was sitting in the audience, was a martial arts expert himself. He could tell what was going on. Bai Luofei's two moves had him trembling in fear. Amazing! Amazing! Zhou Qin, Feng Na and Zhuang Hui, who had a good impression of Li Yundong, couldn't help but clench their fists. They were afraid that Bai Luofei's punch would land on Li Yundong. Su Chan, who had been nonchalant all this time, couldn't help but put her guard up. She thought that Li Yundong would be able to handle an opponent like this easily. But now she realized that even though Bai Luofei wasn't a cultivator, there was still a soft force hidden within his punches and kicks. If Bai Luofei managed to land a hit, the soft force would rush into Li Yundong's body and destroy his meridians and internal organs, causing internal injuries. Just because a cultivator was a cultivator didn't mean that they were invincible. If they allowed a martial arts master to hit them in the vital parts of their body, they would still die. This principle was the same as if a martial arts master was hit on the back of the head by a weak woman with a brick, and he would also fall to the ground immediately. Su Chan stared at the stage for a while. "Yundong, fight back!" she yelled. Li Yundong was forced into a corner by Bai Luofei. He couldn't help but ask, "How do I fight back?" Su Chan shouted, "Go straight in! Go straight in!" Li Yundong suddenly had a glimmer of understanding. He remembered the feeling when he was practicing qi with Su Chan's help. The feeling of the qi in his body being connected up and down. At this time, Bai Luofei had already chased after Li Yundong and made several moves. The old monk carries the burden, swan wings, left and right inch bridge, the great immortal cupped hands, Qin Qiong's mace, and so on. They were all close combat skills. As long as Bai Luofei hit him, Li Yundong would suffer internal injuries. Although Li Yundong didn't know how to deal with these moves, he kept retreating. As long as he kept retreating, Bai Luofei wouldn't be able to hit him no matter how fierce the killer moves were. Luo Yunfei was a little anxious after failing to hit Li Yunyang with a few moves. He had clearly heard the conversation between Li Yunyang and Su Chan. His heart trembled and he didn't dare to delay any longer. He was thinking about how to force Li Yunyang to fight with him, but at this time Li Yundong suddenly stopped moving. He was overjoyed. The horse under his feet didn't move, and he moved his palms down to his ears. His palms were facing down, and then he clenched them into 3 fists. With a whoosh he punched out and let out a wild roar. This roar was really like the roar of a tiger. Coupled with the clanging sound of the diamond rings on his forearms, it was like the roar of a dragon. What a tiger roar and dragon roar! China Tungkris couldn't help but sigh. Her eyes lit up. Bai Luofei's move was amazing. Almost everyone thought that Li Yundong wouldn't be able to block it and would definitely retreat. But at this moment, Li Yundong took a deep breath. The qi in his body surged up from the lower dantian, through the heart of the middle dantian, to the brain of the upper dantian. At this time all three dantians were boiling, and the qi was connected. The qi in all the meridians in Li Yundong's body seemed to be activated, all of them surging. Li Yundong felt as if he had endless strength. Even if there was a mountain of knives or a sea of fire in front of him, he could still go straight through with one punch. It was as easy as taking the head of a general from an army of thousands. Whoosh! Li Yundong punched out, and the majestic qi in his body instantly rushed to his upper arm, then to his forearm and then to his fist. 3 clear popping sounds came from his arm like firecrackers. Finally, the qi formed a powerful airflow, whizzing out of Li Yundong's fist and flying toward Bai Luofei, who was more than a meter away from him. One qi connected straight forward. Bai Luofei felt a fierce qi rushing toward him. He subconsciously blocked it with his fists, and then his whole body was sent flying. Chapter 58. Although Li Yundong had only practiced a little bit of Taekwondo, he had Jindan Yuanqi. Even an ordinary move like Black Tiger Steals the Heart was a powerful killing move. His punch had sent Luo Yunfei flying through the air. Everyone in the auditorium gasped in shock. Their minds went blank. How is that possible? That was the only thought in everyone's mind. Flying through the air? This wasn't some supernatural movie. After a brief moment of silence, Luo Yunfei stumbled to his feet from the stage. He stared at Li Yundong in shock and fear, as if he couldn't believe what had just happened. His lips trembled as he bowed slightly to Li Yundong. Then he leaped off the stage and walked away. Zhou Yu caught up to Luo Yunfei in shock. "Senior brother, what are you doing?" he asked in a hushed voice. "Shut up." Luo Yunfei's voice was laced with an indescribable fear. His voice was trembling. "We've run into a cultivation master who pretends to be a pig to eat a tiger. Don't look back. Let's go. We're no match for him." Zhou Yu chased after Luo Yunfei until they were out of the auditorium. He grabbed Luo Yunfei's arm and asked, "Senior brother, what cultivation master? What are you talking about? I don't understand. You were ambushed just now?" Luo Yunfei snapped his head around and grabbed Zhou Yu by the collar. His eyes were fierce and fierce. "Shut up. I told you not to ask any more questions. Let's go." Bai Yunfei dragged Zhou Yu out of the school compound. It was not until the two of them were in the car that Bai Yunfei breathed a sigh of relief. He turned around and glared at his junior. "How did you get on the wrong side of a cultivator? How dare you drag me down with you?" Zhou Yu was dumbfounded. He had no idea what was going on. "I told you. I don't know anything about a cultivation master. Senior brother, what's wrong with you?" Luo Yunfei stared at Zhou Yu for a moment. Seeing that he was telling the truth, Luo Yunfei turned around and started the car. "Don't ask any more questions. You can't afford to mess with this person. Don't ever mess with him again." As he spoke, Bai Huafei took off the diamond bracelet on his forearm. Only then did Zhou Yu realize that Bai Huafei's attack had left a bruise on his forearm. Zhou Yu sucked in a breath of cold air. He knew how hard these iron rings were, and he also knew that his senior brother's hands were as hard as steel. After wearing the diamond iron rings, even a hammer wouldn't be able to cause such a bruise on his hands. Bai Yunfei took a look at the wound on his hand and shook his head at Zhou Yu. "You drive." The two of them changed seats. Zhou Yu started the car and said unwillingly, "Senior brother, are we just going to let it go? Wouldn't we be ruining Master's reputation?" "Shut up and drive." Bai Yunfei said coldly. "I will get back at them sooner or later, but we can't do it. Master must go to Guangdong to invite the gods." "Invite the gods? Which great expert should we invite?" Zhou Yu asked, but his senior brother turned his head away and looked out the window. He didn't answer, so Zhou Yu didn't pursue the matter. Little did he know that Bai Yunfei wasn't referring to a martial arts expert, but a cultivator who specialized in the spirit possession art. Bai Yunfei and Zhou Yu left in a hurry like stray dogs, but the school's auditorium was in chaos. After a brief moment of silence, The audience suddenly booed. Fake fight. Fake fight. How could they not boo? The two of them were more than a meter apart, and they sent their opponent flying with a single punch? If it wasn't fake, then there would be no such thing as fake football in China. The foreigner John's voice was especially loud. That's fake. The Chinese always know how to fake things. Fortunately, he was speaking in English, or he would have been beaten up by the crowd. Chris frowned and reached out to tug at John. Hey, this is China. Watch your language. I thought I'd get to see real kung fu, John said disdainfully. Who would have thought I'd get to see such a fake performance? Disgusting. After saying that, John suddenly became excited and rushed up to the stage with a whoosh. Chris covered her eyes with her hands, as if she couldn't bear to watch. The teacher beside her shouted John's name at the top of his lungs, but John didn't listen. Chris groaned. God, who agreed to let this idiot come to China with us? At this time, Li Yundong was confused by the boos from the audience. Just as he was wondering what was going on, he suddenly saw a blonde foreigner about 185 meters tall jump onto the stage. Li Yundong could tell at a glance that he was a martial artist. Why is there another one? Li Yundong frowned. The MC, who was trying to smooth things over on stage, was dumbfounded. She watched as the burly man took off his jacket, revealing a body of toned muscles. She didn't know what to say. John crooked his finger at the beautiful MC, who was in a daze. When she came over, he took the microphone and spoke to Li Yundong in English. Li Yundong's English was terrible. How could he understand the fast-talking American English? He stared at the female MC, who glanced at the nervous teachers in the audience as if asking for help. But the teachers couldn't rush up to the stage and drag John off, could they? So when the female MC looked at them, they all looked away and pretended not to see her. The female MC had no choice but to take the microphone and translate to Li Yundong. He said his name is John Shirt and he loves fighting. He wants to make friends with you through martial arts. Make friends through martial arts. Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This wasn't part of the plan. Li Yundong's hesitation made John even more certain that he was faking it. John couldn't help but provoke him. What's the point of faking it, Chinese? Come and beat me if you can. I think the kung fu of you Chinese people is just for show. Li Yundong didn't understand what the MC was saying, but the beautiful MC did. She suddenly felt a common hatred for the enemy and said to Li Yundong in a low voice, he said he looks down on you in Chinese kung fu. Hey, it was a civil war just now. Even if you win, it won't be glorious. Now you're pointing a gun at an outsider. Why don't you win some glory for our country? Before Li Yundong could agree, the beautiful MC walked to the side of the stage and bent down to the teacher who was waving at her. The two of them were talking about something. After a while, the beautiful MC came over and whispered with a smile, your political task is here. The teacher said that you can fight, but you have to take care of the face of your foreign friend and don't hurt him. When Li Yundong heard this, he was angry. Do these officials only care about foreigners? He can hurt me, but I can't hurt him? Li Yundong thought of the school's previous behavior of worshipping foreigners. He felt disgusted, as if he had eaten a fly. He sneered in his heart and made up his mind to teach this arrogant foreigner a lesson. At the same time, he would embarrass the leaders a little. Li Yundong nodded to the MC beside him. I see. The beautiful MC whispered to Li Yundong. Come on. I support you. Li Yundong smiled at her, then turned his eyes to Hardadef, who had been eager to fight. Hardadef whispered a few words to the female MC, nodded, then walked up to Li Yundong and held out his fist to show his respect. Li Yundong looked up at the foreigner in front of him and saw that he had a provocative and disdainful look on his face, as if he couldn't wait to knock him down. The teachers below the stage were all full of regret, secretly regretting that they had put a martial arts competition at the end. Now, if he were to casually injure any one of them, it wouldn't be a good thing. The teachers were worried, but the students didn't care about this. They shouted heartlessly. Those who had strong patriotism loudly supported Li Yundong, and those who thought that the previous fight was exaggerated supported John to expose Li Yundong's true colors. Hardadef jumped on the spot and observed Li Yundong's posture. He saw that the boy was standing in the same place with his eyes lowered. His footsteps were not steady at all, like a tree without roots. His hands were placed vertically in front of him, and his whole body was full of openings. Hardadef sneered and muttered Chinese, "I'll let you know what real fighting is." After saying that, he roared, stepped forward, and pounced on Li Yundong like a tiger. When Li Yundong saw Hardadef's body move, he suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes flashed like lightning, and he threw a straight punch at Hardadef with a whoosh. At this time, Hardadef's feet had left the ground, and he was pouncing in Li Yundong's direction. The distance between them was even farther than before. The wind from Li Yundong's punch hit Hardadef's chest, and he was sent flying straight to the backstage. Wow! The audience suddenly burst into an uproar. This time, everyone clearly saw that Hardadef's whole body was pouncing on Li Yundong. His body was in the air, and his feet were off the ground. It was impossible for him to change his direction, but he still flew out horizontally. What did this mean? Did it mean that Li Yundong had qigong? It can't be that exaggerated, can it? Everyone on and off the stage was shocked. Only Su Chan laughed out loud. She walked over to Hardadef, who had fallen to the ground, and looked at the blonde foreigner curiously. But when she looked at him a little, her face suddenly changed. She immediately turned Hardadef over, and used her hand to check his pulse. Su Chan's face was as white as a sheet. This guy's heart stopped beating. He was killed by Li Yundong with one punch. Su Chan was shocked and scared. She didn't dare to imagine what their lives would be like after Li Yundong killed someone. Will he be taken away? Then what should I do? Su Chan's heart was cold. After a little panic, she calmed down. Just as she was about to use magic to save the man, she saw a blonde woman suddenly rushing over from the backstage. After rushing backstage, Chris saw Hardadef lying on the ground with his eyes closed, motionless. Her heart skipped a beat, and she rushed over to check his pulse. Suddenly, her beautiful face turned pale. She looked up at Li Yundong, who was walking over, and shouted, "You killed him." She spoke in native Chinese, but the accent was a little strange. Li Yundong was also shocked. He quickly walked up to Hardadef and checked his nose. Sure enough, there was no breath at all. Chapter 59. Chris was beating Hardadef's heart with her hands and giving him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. She was so nervous that her forehead was covered with beads of sweat. At this time, Su Chan had completely calmed down. She came to Li Yundong's side, took his hand and whispered, "Yundong, three-pronged flower." After holding Su Chan's hand, Li Yundong suddenly felt relieved. It seemed that as long as this girl was by his side, he would have nothing to fear. Li Yundong turned his head and whispered, "Will the three-pronged flower work?" Su Chan nodded with certainty. "It will work. I will watch from the side. Do it boldly." With Su Chan's encouragement, Li Yundong calmed down. He walked up to Chris and said in a low voice, "Let me do it." As soon as Chris looked up, anger rose in her heart. She shouted, "Murderer! What else do you want?" Li Yundong pointed at Hardadef. "I can save him." Chris said angrily, "He's not breathing. How are you going to save him?" Li Yundong stared at Chris and said firmly, "You can't, but I can. Get out of the way." Seeing that Li Yundong spoke calmly and his eyes were calm and confident, Chris couldn't help but be awed by his bearing and make way for him. Li Yundong helped Hardadef up and into a sitting position. Then, according to the method Su Chan had taught him, he pressed on Hardadef's Baihui, Shanting, and Taiyang acupoints. Li Yundong secretly urged the qi in his body to flow to his fingertips. As soon as the qi in his body flowed, it was like the roaring of mountains and rivers. After a while, a faint white qi came out of the top of his head. Some sharp-eyed people around pointed at Li Yundong's head and wanted to shout, but the people next to them covered their mouths for fear of disturbing Li Yundong. Chris didn't notice Li Yundong's abnormality at this time. She just stared at Hardadef. The reason why Hardadef's heart suddenly stopped beating was because the wind from Li Yundong's punch had hit his chest exactly where his heart was, causing his heart to stop. Previously, Bai Huifei had blocked it with the diamond ring on his arm and was injured, let alone Hardadef. In the West, to determine whether a person was dead or alive, they often looked at whether a person was still breathing, heartbeat, pulse, or whether they had brain waves. But in traditional Chinese medicine, under the condition that a person's body was not damaged, there was only one standard to determine whether a person was dead or alive, and that was to see whether there was any vitality in his body, or whether there was any primordial qi in his body. Li Yundong used the three-pronged flower technique to probe it, and immediately found that the qi reaction in John's body was still strong. He immediately increased his qi, and the yuanyang in John's body was violently stimulated and instantly transferred up. Once the body's essence was mobilized, the aura would automatically cause the blood to flow. When the blood flowed to the heart, the impact of the blood would cause the heart to expand before automatically contracting. John came back to life at once. John suddenly opened his eyes and took a deep breath. He clutched his chest and coughed continuously. He's alive, he's alive. The backstage was filled with jubilation. The nervous people around Li Yundong breathed a sigh of relief. Su Chan patted her chest with a look of relief on her face. Feng Na and the others also secretly wiped away the cold sweat on their foreheads. They looked at Li Yundong with admiration, all of them admiring the boy's composure in the face of death. Chris also breathed a sigh of relief. She drew a cross on her chest and prayed inwardly. Then she looked at John carefully and said loudly, "You idiot. How are you feeling now?" John clutched his chest and coughed painfully. "What happened to me?" Chris looked at him with a mixture of anger and amusement. "You were sent flying by a punch. Your heart stopped beating just now, but he saved you." Chris pointed at Li Yundong, who was standing beside her. John's face was full of confusion. Obviously, he didn't understand what had happened just now. He shook his head like a rattled drum and said in English, "That's impossible. I remember I didn't get close to him. How did he send me flying?" Chris glanced at Li Yundong with an inexplicable awe in her eyes. She lowered her voice and said to Hardadef, "He sent you flying with one punch while you were still in the air. What I mean is, before you could even touch him, he had already sent you flying from a distance of 1 or 2 meters. Just like the man who practiced iron wire boxing just now." John's eyes were about to fall out of his sockets. He shook his head like a rattle drum. "Impossible, how is that possible?" Chris said, "My grandmother said that China is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. There are all kinds of amazing people. Don't doubt it. Everyone saw it with their own eyes. Do you want to compete with him again?" John shook his head even more violently. He was completely convinced by Li Yundong. Although he didn't understand what was going on, the facts were in front of him, and he couldn't help but be convinced. John sat on the ground in a daze for a while. He suddenly thought of some of the martial arts movies he had seen in China before, and an idea suddenly came to his mind. Could this be the so-called Nigong? Was this person really a great master? The more John thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. He suddenly turned over, knelt down in front of Li Yundong, and shouted a Chinese word with American characteristics. "Negative?" Li Yundong was caught off guard and froze in place. "Negative? What negative? What is he talking about?" Chris didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She explained, "He's asking you to be his master." Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It turned out that foreign devils were all cheap wretches. They wouldn't be convinced if they didn't fight. If they were convinced, they would cry and beg to be his disciple. Li Yundong waved his hand. No, I'm still young. How can I be his master? Besides, the word master doesn't mean negative. Learn the Chinese language well before you come back to be my disciple." John didn't understand a single word that Li Yundong was saying, so he just stared blankly at him. It wasn't easy for him to hear the word master. And now he understood. He nodded vigorously and shouted, "Negative, negative." The people around him burst into laughter when they saw him like this. At this time, some of the university leaders rushed backstage and shouted, "What happened?" When they saw that Hardadef was kneeling in front of Li Yundong, they thought that Li Yundong had done something to the foreign friend. Just as they were about to get angry, Chris smiled at them and explained, "Hardadef wants to be apprenticed to this friend, but he doesn't agree." When the university leaders heard this, they immediately felt relieved and secretly looked at Li Yundong approvingly. They thought that something big had happened. Fortunately, nothing happened. Not bad. This kid has brought glory to the university. Principal Ku, who was in charge of tonight's party, was relieved. He said to Li Yundong, "Student, why don't you just accept this foreigner as your disciple? It will be a good story in Tiannan University in the future." For a moment, both teachers and students smiled and agreed. Li Yundong also hesitated. He didn't want to agree to this matter. First, he had nothing to teach this foreigner. His qi was taught by Su Chan. Second, he didn't know how to teach her. But if he didn't agree, it didn't seem right now. Su Chan saw Li Yundong's hesitation and was afraid that he would agree. She couldn't help but lean over and whisper, "Yundong, don't agree." Li Yundong whispered, "Why?" Su Chan's face was solemn. How can the country's treasures be passed on to foreigners? Li Yundong was taken aback for a moment, but he quickly realized that Su Chan was referring to the massage and qi cultivation methods that she had taught him before. Even though he thought that Su Chan's words were a little outdated and sounded like she was stuck in a rut, she still had a great influence on him. Now that the girl had mentioned it, Li Yundong had an idea. Li Yundong said, "I can't accept a master now. If I can do it casually, it will be too improper and not dignified. I have to ask my master first." At this time, Headmaster Ku already knew that Li Yundong was a great master who didn't show his face. He couldn't help but ask, "Then who is your master?" Li Yundong deliberately pretended to be embarrassed and didn't say anything. Headmaster Ku was old and wise, so he immediately understood and didn't force the issue. He said to Chris, "You heard it. I also think it's better to be dignified. After all, it's not a small matter to be an apprentice in our country." Chris nodded, pulled John up and said in English, "Get up. He thinks that your Chinese is too poor, so he won't accept you." John stood up and said loudly, "I can learn, I will work hard." After saying that, he gritted his teeth and tried to correct his pronunciation. But this time he shouted, "Negative, negative." When the people around him saw his appearance, they all burst into laughter. Li Yundong had thought that the foreigner was arrogant before, but now it seemed that he was a straightforward person, which was cute. He waved his hand and said to John with a smile, "When you learn the Chinese language, you can come and take me as your master." After that, Chris suddenly came up to him, blinked at him and whispered, "I can speak the Chinese language. Can you accept me as your disciple?" Although she had said this in a low voice, the people around them heard it clearly. For a moment, all kinds of eyes were looking at Li Yundong. The girls thought to themselves, "This foreign horse really knows how to take advantage of others." The boys looked at Li Yundong with envy and jealousy. What kind of luck does this guy have with women? Why does all the beautiful women want to be with him? This foreign girl is very hot. Li Yundong was stunned by Chris's question. He found that he had been pushed into a corner by Chris. A trace of pride flashed in Chris's eyes. She thought to herself, "Didn't you say that I can be apprenticed as long as I can speak the Chinese language? Humph, you have to accept me this time, right?" The Chinese place great importance on apprenticeship. Heaven, Earth, Emperor, Master, Heaven, Earth, Emperor, and parents were the most important. But foreigners didn't care about this. In their eyes, apprenticeship was as common as hiring a tutor. So Chris did it without hesitation. Li Yundong saw that Chris had no sincerity at all. She just wanted to tease him, unlike John, who sincerely wanted to be apprenticed. He felt a little unhappy, so he said, "There is a rule in my sect that only men can be apprenticed, not women." As soon as his voice fell, there was a burst of laughter, and some boys applauded. Chapter 60. Chris thought that Li Yundong's excuse was too convincing. There was no way to refute it. She had been living a luxurious life since she was a child. It could be said that she had grown up with a golden spoon in her mouth. She was beautiful, tall, and sexy. Wherever she went, she would be surrounded and flattered by men. Who would have thought that she would be angered to the point where she could not step down? Chris couldn't take it anymore. She gritted her teeth for a while, stamped her feet, turned around and rushed out of the backstage. At this time, the school leaders in the backstage also knew that there was nothing to worry about. A tragedy that could have happened turned into a cleanup. It could be said that everyone was happy. Seeing that tonight's party was a success, Headmaster Ku said kindly to Li Yundong, "Bring them up later. Mayor Luo will meet you." Don't embarrass our university. Although Li Yundong didn't think much of it, he still nodded politely. The university leaders filed out of the room in satisfaction, leaving only the burly John behind to pester Li Yundong. John had no idea what Chris had said to Li Yundong. He just kept shouting at Li Yundong, "Eat, eat," and then a long string of gibberish in English. Although Li Yundong's English wasn't good, it was obvious that he was begging to be accepted as a disciple. Feng Na's English was good. She smiled and whispered to Li Yundong, "This foreigner is begging you to teach him Chinese. He said that after he learned Chinese from you, he will learn Kung Fu from you." Li Yundong smiled and said, "This foreigner is very persistent. Tell him that he hasn't been here for long enough to teach him a few words of Chinese." Feng Na smiled and translated for John. Seeing that there was an interpreter next to him, John was overjoyed. He grabbed Feng Na's hand and said a long string of things while gesturing. Feng Na couldn't stand the enthusiasm of the foreigner. She quickly pulled her hand back and quietly took half a step back. Then she translated the words to Li Yundong. He said that teaching him a little is a little, and he will work hard to learn. Li Yundong laughed. How can that be? Who learns Chinese like this? Besides, he will go back to the United States in 2 days. When he goes back, he will forget about the apprenticeship. It's useless to learn Kung Fu in a few days. It will take a long time, at least a few years. As soon as Feng Na translated his words, Hardadef started yelling again with his eyes wide open. Helpless, Li Yundong turned to look at Feng Na. Feng Na smiled and said, he said that he would apply to study at Tiannan University as an international exchange student, as long as Tiannan University accepts him as a disciple. After Feng Na finished translating, she patted Li Yundong on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Not bad, you have a die-hard foreign fan. Looks like choosing you as my idol was a wise decision. From now on, I'll be the senior sister of your fan club." Cheng Cheng, who was at the side, immediately added, "The handsome and elegant sect leader and the beautiful eldest senior sister. They are a good match." Feng Na's face immediately turned red. She glared at Cheng Cheng in embarrassment and anger. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Li Yundong could hear the ambiguity in her words, and couldn't help but glance at Feng Na. Although Feng Na had a round face, she looked cute and sweet. When she was shy, she had a unique charm of a young girl. But at this time, Li Yundong's whole body and mind were focused on Su Chan. He just glanced at her and naturally looked away, not showing the slightest sign of being attracted. Although Feng Na was shy, she had been carefully observing Li Yundong's expression and eyes. She saw that Li Yundong's eyes were clear, without the slightest hint of affection between a man and a woman. She couldn't help but feel disappointed. Li Yundong didn't seem to notice Feng Na's abnormality. He smiled and said, "Tell Hardadef that as long as he learns Chinese well, I'll think about it." Li Yundong guessed that this foreigner was just on a whim. There was no way he would go from a first-class university like the University of Pennsylvania to a third-rate university like Tiannan University as an exchange student. But as soon as Hardadef heard Feng Na's translation, his eyes lit up and he pestered Li Yundong to teach him Chinese first. Li Yundong was impatient and annoyed by Hardadef's pestering. He had an idea and he smiled wickedly and said, "Well, I'll teach you a sentence first. This is a sentence that we Chinese say when we greet people. Listen carefully." The surrounding students looked at Li Yundong and Hardadef curiously. Most of them guessed that Li Yundong would probably teach him to say things like "Hello and have you eaten?" Li Yundong said calmly, "Pay attention. This sentence is like this. Hello." The surrounding students immediately hissed. That's what he said. How uncreative. Really, at least be creative. Li Yundong didn't seem to hear the gossip around him. He still said the following 3 words with a calm expression, "Big idiot." Wow! This time, the backstage suddenly burst into an uproar. "Hello, big idiot." The students backstage were shocked and laughed. Who would greet someone like that? You're going to get into a fight, aren't you? Hardadef vaguely felt that the laughter around him was a little strange, but he was eager to become Li Yundong's disciple. He didn't expect that Li Yundong would play a prank on him and teach him a curse. Seeing that Li Yundong was teaching him seriously, Hardadef also learned very seriously. Greasy how reached the idiot. Uft. Su-chan was the first to lose it. She turned her head and hid in a corner laughing wildly. After a while, Feng Na and the others finally copied Su-chan's actions and ran away, hiding in a small corner and laughing their hearts out. As the initiator of this prank, Li Yundong almost burst out laughing when he heard Hardadef's serious expression. However, he had always been a mischievous person, so he managed to hold back his laughter. Instead, he pointed out Hardadef's incorrect pronunciation with a serious expression on his face. Hardadef repeated a few lines, and the more he said, the more fluent and excited he became. The more he said, the louder and louder he became. Mud howl, big sand wall. The louder he shouted, the more the students backstage laughed. One by one, they were hovering between life and death. Hardadef was obviously a crazy person. Seeing that these people were all extremely happy, he was also very happy. He kept saying to Li Yundong, "Mud howl, big sand wall." Li Yundong didn't feel it at first, but after listening for a while, he realized that something was wrong. "Hey, isn't he scolding me?" Li Yundong nodded and smiled at Hardadef. Yeah. Hello, big idiot." While the two of them were greeting each other, a teacher suddenly burst into the backstage. He shouted at Li Yundong and the students who were rolling on the ground in laughter, "What are you guys doing? Get on the stage. The city leaders are waiting to see you." The teacher was so anxious that he didn't notice the mistakes in his words at all. As soon as the teacher left, Li Yundong waved his arm and shouted, "Come on everyone. Let's go meet the city leaders." As soon as he said that, the backstage burst into laughter. Feng Na watched as Li Yundong led the students to the stage. For a moment, she stared at Li Yundong's back in a daze. Beside her, Chang Cheng couldn't help but poke her with her finger. "Hey, if you like him, then take the initiative." Feng Na blushed. "Who likes him?" she said. "He's younger than me. I like older and more mature men." Chang Cheng scratched her cheek with her hand. "You're so shameless. You looked like you wanted to eat Li Yundong. You think he's Tang Seng's meat, don't you?" I bet there were a lot of people here who wanted to eat Tang Seng's meat. Do you want to be a spider spirit or a bone spirit? Pick your pick. Hurry up." Feng Na laughed. "Bah, you're so good at making things up." Feng Na suddenly sighed. "But no matter what kind of spirit you are, who actually got to eat Tang Seng's meat?" Feng Na glanced at Su-chan, who was hiding behind the curtain and peeking at the stage. She smiled bitterly and said, "He has such a beautiful woman by his side, and he's in a favorable position. How could I have a chance?" Chang Cheng's interest waned at Feng Na's words. "Hey, even someone like you doesn't have the courage to go into battle, let alone someone like me. It's not that our army is useless, it's just that the enemy is too strong." Feng Na glanced at Chang Cheng curiously. "You like him too?" Chang Cheng said casually, "Of course. Boys like him are rare nowadays. How could I not like him? But, Nana, speaking of which, when he was performing on stage, I didn't think he was very handsome, but when he beat John until his heart stopped and then saved him, he was so calm and at ease. He was so damn handsome. If he doesn't have a girlfriend, I'll be the first to snatch him away." Feng Na jumped to her feet. "Well, you slut. You're interested in him, but you're egging me on." Chang Cheng resisted with all her might. "Aren't you one yourself? You obviously like him, but you say you don't. Keep pretending." The two of them laughed for a while. Suddenly, Feng Na saw Zhuang Hui, who had finished touching up her makeup backstage and was walking toward the stage. Feng Na's interest waned. "Forget it," she said. "Even if Li Yundong really doesn't have a girlfriend, the competition is too fierce. I'm afraid Zhuang Hui is also eyeing Tang Seng's meat. Besides, I think Zhou Qin might have feelings for Li Yundong." Chang Cheng nodded in agreement. She sighed. "God, why is it so difficult to find a man? God, please give me a man. I'll bury him in the ground in the spring, and in the autumn." Feng Na gave her a shove. "You'll be able to harvest a pile of bones in the autumn, idiot. Don't be silly. Get on the stage." The stage was crowded with students attending the party. At the front stood John with a smile on his face. This foreign friend had volunteered to go on stage, and had almost been killed by Li Yundong with his bare hands. Fortunately, the bad thing had turned into a good thing. He had become the most famous person besides Li Yundong. Foreigners advocated individual heroism, so they naturally loved to be in the limelight. Most of them would go crazy when there were people around. Hardadef stood on the stage, his face flushed with excitement. He was itching to give it a try. If it weren't for the fact that there were too many people around, he would probably be performing his punches and kicks right here. When the municipal leader came up to him, he said a few words of concern in Chinese. After listening to the interpreter, John suddenly had an idea and said something to the interpreter in English. The interpreter looked at John in surprise, then said to the leader next to him, Mayor Luo, this Mr. John said that he just learned a greeting in Chinese, and he wants to learn it for you. When Mayor Luo heard this, he was greatly relieved and put on airs. Okay, let him say it. Nowadays, more and more foreigners are learning our Chinese, which shows that our international image and status are indeed constantly improving. How could John understand what he was saying? When he saw the interpreter nod at him, he was immediately overjoyed. Then very seriously, carefully, and forcefully shouted the phrase that Li Yundong had taught him, mud hell, big sand wall. Suddenly, the officials next to the municipal leader felt their vision go black. Chapter 61. Fortunately, he didn't greet his family. Mayor Luo's smile froze on his face, and the corners of his eyes kept twitching. The attendants and other school leaders around him wanted to laugh, but they didn't dare to. All of their faces were tense, and they looked like they were ready to die a righteous death. However, the corners of their mouths twitched from time to time, as if they were cramping. The students around them obviously didn't have as good control as these leaders. Some students couldn't help but burst into laughter on the spot, but they felt that it was inappropriate, so they immediately straightened their faces. After a while, they couldn't help but turn their heads and cover their mouths to secretly laugh. Li Yundong heard John's wolf-like cry and almost fainted. However, he was standing in the front row, and the city leaders were not far away, so he had to use all his strength to control himself and not let himself laugh. John didn't know that he had been pranked by Li Yundong. Seeing the strange reactions of the people around him, he couldn't help but ask blankly, "What's wrong? Did I learn it wrong?" Then he tried very hard to learn the pronunciation. When Mayor Luo heard this, he thought, "Oh my God, you want to greet again?" Most leaders had quick reactions. He shook John's hand with a calm expression, then said to the school leader who was wiping his sweat with a natural expression, "People always say that the first thing you learn when you're in a foreign place is to curse. Now it seems that it's true." After that, he took the lead and laughed out loud. With this laugh, the people around him were relieved. They let out a long sigh of relief and laughed one after another. Li Yundong managed to endure until all the leaders left. When the party was about to end, he saw Chris walking over angrily with John. Li Yundong felt guilty, so he pulled Su Chan and said, "Run, run, the foreign devils are coming to make trouble." Su Chan had been so amused by Hardadef's thunderous greeting that she couldn't stand up straight. When Li Yundong pulled her away, she let out an "oh," wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and ran after him. At first, they were able to control themselves in the auditorium, and their pace was not fast. However, the closer they got to the entrance of the auditorium, the faster they walked. As soon as they got out of the auditorium, Li Yundong pulled Su Chan and ran. Chris shouted from behind, "Stop! Li Yundong, I have something to say." Li Yundong laughed, turned his head and said, "Stop right there. Let's talk tomorrow." Chris was so angry that her nose was crooked. She said to John, "John, let's go after them." John was confused. "Chase? Why?" Chris was exasperated. "You idiot, didn't you know he was playing with you just now?" John asked in confusion, "How did he trick me?" Chris kicked John angrily. "That Chinese he taught you is a curse word. You just cursed the mayor of this city." John immediately covered his head with a look of horror. "Oh my God, I heard that this country is very centralized. Will I be sent to jail for scolding the mayor? Can't I go back?" Seeing him like this, Chris was both annoyed and amused. "You're such a simple-minded idiot. Hurry up and catch up with him. Make him apologize." John nodded his head vigorously at first, but then he said dejectedly, "What's the use of chasing after them? I can't beat him." Chris said angrily, "Do Do you only know how to use force? Are you still living in the Middle Ages? With that, she chased after John. It's up to you whether you want to come or not. John had no choice but to follow her. Li Yundong and Su Chan ran out of the school, laughing like crazy the whole way. Of course, they couldn't run very fast. Once they were out of the school gate, Su Chan smiled and asked, "Where do we go now?" There were very few people on the road. Only a man with his head down and his hands in his pants pockets was hurrying towards Li Yundong. Li Yundong pointed in the direction of the main road. Over there. Before he could finish his words, he suddenly saw the person passing by him take out a bag of lime powder from his pocket and sprinkle it at Li Yundong. Li Yundong had never dreamed that someone would use such a dirty trick on him. Even though he had closed his eyes subconsciously, some of the lime powder still got into his eyes. With a roar, he covered his eyes with one hand and grabbed Su Chan with the other. "Su Chan, run!" Su Chan was right next to Li Yundong. The man's target was Li Yundong, so she didn't get hit at all. She was shocked and angry to see Li Yundong being attacked. How could she run? The man who had thrown the lime powder at Li Yundong shouted, "Do it!" As soon as he finished shouting, Su Chan rushed into his arms like lightning and slapped him on the chest. This palm strike didn't contain much strength, but after a loud bang, the man felt as if all the strength in his body had disappeared. Even his bones had gone limp, and he fell limply to the ground. All he could do was exhale, and he couldn't inhale anymore. At this time, the thugs who had been lying in ambush on the side of the road all took out their blades and rushed over. Su Chan saw that things were not going well. She stretched out a hand, and a faint cyan light flowed on her fingers. She quickly wiped Li Yundong's eyes and shouted, "Okay, you can open your eyes now." After saying that, she rushed out. The lime in Li Yundong's eyes had been quietly removed by Su Chan with magic, but he still felt a stabbing pain in his eyes. He tried hard to open his eyes, only to find that his vision was blurred. Only Su Chan's figure was constantly jumping, and screams and wails were constantly coming from all around him. Chris and John, who had just arrived, were dumbfounded. John stared at Su Chan, who had knocked down one of them with a single move. He said in shock, "Jesus Christ, do all Chinese people really know Kung Fu? How is this girl so powerful?" He had a lot of actual combat experience, so he naturally knew that this sneak attack in front of him couldn't be a prearranged play. Moreover, although Su Chan's attack looked weak and powerless, her figure was erratic like a ghost. As soon as her hand pressed on the person's body, there was immediately a scream like that of a pig being slaughtered. Chris also widened her eyes, as if she couldn't believe what was happening in front of her. These thugs had all been hired by CFA at a high price. Originally, they had planned to cripple Li Yundong tonight, but they had never expected that. Although Li Yundong seemed to be a bit crazy, in fact, the real powerful one was the delicate little beauty next to him. When Su Chan took down the sixth person, the thugs were obviously afraid. Fear and hesitation appeared in their eyes, and they began to stop moving forward. One of the thugs who was close to Li Yundong gritted his teeth and slashed at Li Yundong, but in his heart, he was wishful thinking. At least hit him once, then immediately run away so that I can report back. But Li Yundong happened to regain his vision at this time. He saw the knife coming at him. He grabbed it with his hand and clamped the blade between his fingers. The thug was shocked and tried to grab the knife, but it didn't budge at all. It was as if it wasn't a hand but a big iron clamp. Li Yundong was furious. He squeezed his fingers hard and broke the knife, then picked the thug up with one hand and said in a fierce voice, "Tell me who sent you." The thug was frightened by Li Yundong. He had never seen someone like Li Yundong who could catch a knife empty-handed. The thug's legs trembled. It was CFA. Li Yundong laughed angrily. "Well, it seems that he still doesn't want to give up. Well, go back and tell him that I'll take this on. Let's see if he dies first or I die first. If he has the guts, don't show up at Tiannan University again, or I'll throw him off the teaching building. I mean what I say." With that, Li Yundong slapped the thug's face. The thug spat out a couple of teeth. The thug covered his mouth and staggered away, not daring to look back. By this time, Su Chan had already knocked the thugs around her to the ground. She kept in mind the rule that cultivators could not use magic to kill mortals. From the beginning to the end, her goal was only to hurt people. She used her gentle hand strength to injure the internal organs of these thugs. After they went back, they would be left with all kinds of serious internal injuries in less than a year, and they would never be able to do evil again. Li Yundong walked up to Su Chan. He didn't look at the wailing thugs around her. Instead, he looked at Su Chan with concern. "Are you okay?" Su Chan smiled and pointed at the thugs on the ground. "What do you think?" she asked. "I told you I'm good, didn't I?" Li Yundong laughed, then quickly put on a straight face and pretended to be angry. "You're not allowed to hit people again." Su Chan was expecting Li Yundong to praise her, but when she heard him say that, she pouted. "You're so annoying. Why don't you give me some compliments?" Li Yundong pinched Su Chan's nose. "I'll be worried if someone hurts you, or if you hurt someone else," he said. "Do you understand? Let me do this kind of thing." Su Chan's heart warmed. Her anger turned to joy. She giggled and used her hand to wipe away the remaining lime powder on Li Yundong's face. "You've turned into a big tabby cat." Li Yundong suddenly remembered that there was lime powder on his face. He used the corner of his shirt to wipe his face clean. "That son of a bitch is so evil," he cursed. "Thank God you're here. Otherwise, I'd have been turned into minced meat today." Suddenly, Li Yundong seemed to remember something. He turned to Chris and John, who were in a daze not far away. "You two saw it," he said loudly. "They were the ones who started it. Su Chan and I were just defending ourselves." John and Chris were already dumbfounded by what they saw. How could they react in time? They just nodded subconsciously. After the two of them watched Li Yundong and Su Chan leave in a taxi, Hardadef's eyes lit up and he yelled, "I must take him as my master. I must take him as my master. He's amazing." Chris rolled her eyes at him. Then she suddenly thought of something. "That bastard only knows how to lie," she said angrily. "Didn't he say that his kung fu was only passed down to males and not females? Why is that girl so good?" In Chris's opinion, Li Yundong must have taught Su Chan's kung fu. Little did she know that Su Chan was the one who had guided Li Yundong's kung fu. == Chapter 62. Even though it was late at night, the school leaders and teachers still held a board meeting to discuss the results and mistakes of the evening's gala. "I told you this student is a black sheep. We must kick him out of the school." Director Chen slammed his fist on the table. His head was so agitated that it fell to the ground, blocking one of his eyes. It was a comical sight. Think about it. Because of him, someone almost died at the school gala. And he even taught foreigners how to swear. He embarrassed the city leaders. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall. It was easy for the teachers to find out what had happened. Director Chen seized the opportunity and made up his mind to get rid of this thorn in his side. Although the other teachers had never had any direct conflicts with Li Yundong, they had more or less heard of Li Yundong's recent exploits. Teachers dislike students like him from the bottom of their hearts, especially Mr. Liu, who had a history with Li Yundong. Mr. Liu, who had clashed with Li Yundong at the school gate, took this opportunity to add insult to injury. "I agree with Mr. Chen," he said. "A student like him will cause trouble at our school sooner or later. Look at him these days, which day doesn't he cause trouble?" The president of Tiannan University had gone abroad for an investigation, so the vice president was naturally in charge of all the affairs of the university. President Ku adjusted his reading glasses, coughed and said, "But Li Yundong still has a good reputation among the exchange students at the University of Pennsylvania." Principal Ku, Li Yundong almost killed John with one punch and taught him how to swear. What kind of impression does he leave on people? People will think that our school is full of students like him. Principal Ku fell silent. After a while he said, "But no matter what, he contributed a lot to this gala. You could say that he was the one in the limelight. If we fire him for no reason, it won't be justifiable." Principal Ku still had a good impression of Li Yundong. If it weren't for Li Yundong, the gala would have been a tragedy. Even if he hadn't been implicated, Tiannan University would have inevitably been affected. Seeing that Principal Ku had spoken up for Li Yundong, Director Chen knew that it would be difficult for him to expel Li Yundong. Although he was reluctant to do so, there was nothing else he could say. Instead, He let out a muffled snort and fell silent. Headmaster Ke glanced at him and concluded the discussion. Well, that's it. Let's move on to the next question. After the school committee meeting, Director Qian, who was walking at the back, was stopped by Professor Liu. Director Qian, it's actually not difficult to get rid of those black sheep. Oh, Chief Qian asked in surprise. Teacher Liu smiled and said, it's going to be the final exam soon. I've already asked around. This student has already skipped more than 40 classes this semester, and he can't take the exam for quite a few subjects. He can only take the exam for the remaining 2 compulsory subjects. As long as he fails these 2 subjects and doesn't get credit, then, Director Chen smiled and said, so, we can persuade him to quit. The 2 teachers looked at each other and smiled, feeling like they regretted not having met earlier. Compared to some unscrupulous teachers who were full of evil tricks, university students were much more innocent. That night, the campus forum was packed to the brim with students. The number of posts on the forum nearly crashed the server. After taking a shower in her dorm, Chung Chung sat in front of her computer and clicked on the Jianghu section of the campus forum. The first page of the forum was filled with selfies taken by students from that night's gala. The first highlighted post was Li Yundong's post. Chung Chung shouted excitedly at Feng Na, who was in the bathroom. Nana! Look! Look! Seeing how excited Chung Chung was, the other roommates in the dormitory all came over to watch. After a while, Feng Na also came out with a towel wrapped around her, revealing her fair and long legs. While drying her wet hair, she asked, what are you looking at? You look like you're on steroids. Feng Na laughed when she saw the video. It was a video of Li Yundong's performance at the gala. What's so good about that? Didn't you guys see it already? Plus it was taken with a cell phone. It's so blurry. Chung Chung turned around and laughed. That's not the same. This is from a third person's perspective. Li Yundong looks so cool. Feng Na laughed. That's right. Why else would I make a junior my idol? The roommates in the dorm laughed. Well, you've been plotting this for a long time, Nana. Hurry up and tell us how far you've gone. Feng Na's heart skipped a beat, and her expression darkened. Chung Chung quickly changed the topic. Hey, look at the comments. They're super funny. Only then did the girls change their target. They gathered in front of the computer and read the comments one by one, then read them out in low voices. Holy crap! Tunnan University has so many talents. When did such a fierce person appear? Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon? This is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So awesome, so awesome. I'm proud to be a student of Tiannan University. I'm proud. A true man doesn't show his face. If he does, he's not a true man. Upstairs, are you saying that Li Yundong is showing his true colors today? He's no longer a true man? A true man doesn't show his face. If he does, he's not a true man. The 6th floor is powerful. Watch and worship. The 6th floor is bright. Well, according to the 6th floor's theory, Li Yundong is still a true man because he didn't show his face. 500 years ago, there was Zhang Sanfeng of Wudong Mountain. 500 years later, there is Li Yundong of Tiannan City, Zhenren Li. Dear benefactors, convert to Buddhism as soon as possible. The sea of bitterness is boundless. Repent and you will be saved. Those who are interested, please contact the disciple of Zhenren Li of Dormitory 406. Phone number 134 **54657. Holy crap, you idiot. Zhenren is a Taoist. Why are you a Buddhist here? Get out of here, bald donkey. How can a Taoist like you confuse the public? Tanyu, I'm not talented, but I'm the 49th generation successor of Zhenren Li. If you are interested in joining the Taoist sect, please contact Dormitory 108. Since I lost my mobile phone the day before yesterday, I haven't gotten a new SIM card, so I only left a secret code. The secret code is, Long Live Allah. Holy crap, the 49th generation successor of Zhenren Li? Zhenren Li is less than 20 years old this year, and he's already the 49th generation? Are you cell division or gene cloning? Long live Allah, that son of mine. The girls read the comments one by one and almost broke their bellies laughing. Chung Chung laughed so hard that tears flowed from her eyes. She collapsed on Feng Na and said, panting, "I can't take it anymore. My intestines are going to break from laughing." Feng Na also laughed with tears in her eyes. "These people are so funny." The girls laughed as they returned to their beds, logged into their computers one after another, and followed Hu Tian and Hu Di in the school's Jianghu section. In just an hour, Li Yundong's video post had more than 1,000 comments. When it broke 1,000 comments, the students of Tianan University couldn't help but exclaim, "This is definitely the most powerful post in the 10 years since the founding of Tianan University. It can be called the first divine post in Tianan University." But the most powerful thing about this post was not the jaw-dropping popularity of the post, but the strong attack power of the post's fans. After Li Yundong's video post came out, many people had been sourly accusing the video of being fake and saying with certainty, "How can there be kung fu that can hit people from a distance in the world? Did Li Yundong practice the 18 dragons subduing palms, or the Buddha's palm? I think this is another conspiracy of a so-called Qigong master." But soon, these comments were attacked by the students who had watched the party that night. These bored students used all kinds of sharp, shrewd, and unkind words to attack the conspiracy theorists. At first, the conspiracy theorists could still argue and refute with strong arguments. But as the battle went on, more and more students returned to their dormitories and logged into the school's website. More and more people joined Li Yundong's fan club and attacked anyone who said bad things about Li Yundong. Gradually, the conspiracy theorists began to lose ground, especially when 18 generations of their ancestors and 18 generations of their descendants were killed. One by one, they began to lose the number one divine post in Tianan University. When Li Yundong reached the 2000th post, the last one to hold his ground, Li He, who went by the name True Love Forever, finally lost. For a moment, the Li Mi, who had no ancestral graves to dig up, looked around blankly, and had nowhere to vent their anger. Just then, someone who had nothing better to do went to the gossip section and created a post to vote for the most popular young man on campus. The post listed all the school hunks at Tianan University. As a result, the locusts in the Jianghu section immediately turned to the gossip section, and in an instant the post was covered by more than 1,000 comments. Li Yundong was named the most popular young man at Tianan University with 95% of the votes. The previous school hunk, Zhao Yujian, wasn't even nominated. But that wasn't the end of it. Cheng Cheng was still not satisfied, so she secretly created another post. It was titled, "Who do you think is your perfect male partner?" As a result, Li Yundong's strong female fan club once again pushed Li Yundong to the top of the list. The voting rate was as high as 97%. In for a penny, in for a pound, Cheng Cheng opened another post. "Who do you think is your perfect female partner?" As Feng Na's best friend, Cheng Cheng naturally voted for her sister. Feng Na's roommates also voted for Feng Na. But this time the results were out of the girls' expectations. Li Yundong's mysterious girlfriend won an astonishing number of votes, beating out Tianan University's campus belle, Zhou Qin, and department belle Feng Na. This is a conspiracy. This is definitely a conspiracy. Cheng Cheng was furious. This is the boys' revenge on us girls for supporting Li Yundong just now. Chapter 63. As the saying goes, there is no smoke without fire. The boys and girls immediately launched a fierce battle because of this matter. The girls kept listing Li Yundong's good points, such as his ability to fight and fight, his humor, his handsome appearance, his gentleness and consideration towards his girlfriend, and so on. They used this to criticize the current boys for their lack of responsibility, lack of ambition, lack of interest, barbaric and rude, trap, and so on. The boys naturally didn't want to be outdone by the girls. They listed Su Chan's good points one by one. She's beautiful but not arrogant. She's cute and easygoing. She's not like the girls nowadays who talk about money and worship money. She's tacky and disgusting. Most importantly, she's prettier than a movie star, but she doesn't have a single branded item on her. She's simple and plain. In this day and age, the battle between men and women could never be decided. Women scolded there is no good man in the world on all kinds of occasions, and men also repeatedly scolded, There is no woman who is not vain and doesn't worship money. Was there a rich man who seduced women and fought to be their mistress first? Or was there a beautiful woman who tried to promote from a mistress to a wife first? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? This was a question worth considering. When the topic gradually touched on sensitive social issues, everyone inevitably felt the weight of the topic. Some people began to slowly withdraw from the debate and meditate. The speed of the gossip forums posts slowed down significantly. But suddenly, an ID called, "I'm an otaku. I'm not afraid of anyone," suddenly left a comment on the thread, "Who's the perfect female partner around you? F***CK. Who posted this? How dare you fantasize about my Su-chan? Do you want to die?" This sentence immediately caused a huge uproar. Almost at the same time, dozens of divers and hundreds of online students left comments to curse the poster, 99% of whom were men. But after a while, the ID said something that caused the forum to explode. F***CK. What's wrong with you guys? I'm Lee Yundong and Su-chan is my girlfriend. I'll beat up anyone who tries to hit on her. Lee Yundong? It's Lee Yundong. Lee Yundong is online. This news instantly spread throughout the entire forum and all the campus QQ groups. The students who had been a little dispirited were suddenly excited, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Some of the students who had already fallen asleep were also awakened and logged back into the school forum. Many people questioned the true identity of this ID and said, "How can you prove that you are Lee Yundong?" I said I was Lee Yunxi. Lee Yundong was surfing the internet on his new home laptop. After he came home, he took a shower and practiced his chi for a while. He was bored out of his mind and wanted to go to bed, but too many things had happened that night. He wanted to talk to Su-chan about how she knew Kung Fu, but he didn't know how to bring it up. Caught between a rock and a hard place, Lee Yundong turned on his computer and logged into the school forum. Before Su-chan had appeared in his life, he had been a frequent visitor to this forum. However, at that time he had been a typical otaku. He wasn't famous in school, so naturally, no one paid attention to his words and actions. However, things were different now. After he logged onto the forum and casually said something, it immediately caused a huge uproar. How can I prove that I am Lee Yundong? Lee Yundong couldn't help laughing when he saw such a reply. How can I prove that I am Lee Yundong? Lee Yundong replied. Immediately, someone on the forum who had nothing better to do said, "Post a pages. Report your 3 measurements." Downstairs, a serious person said, "It's simple. Post your phone number, and we'll make a call to verify it. Then we'll know." Lee Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "How do you know it's me? Can all of you recognize my voice?" Lee Yundong didn't try to shirk the responsibility, so half of the people on the internet began to believe that this ID was Lee Yundong. They couldn't help but excitedly come up with ideas. "I'm Lee Yundong's classmate. I can recognize his voice," an ID called Taeyang Sangzi said. Immediately, someone praised and applauded the ID called Taeyang Sangzi to call Lee Yundong. Lee Yundong was so annoyed by these people on the internet that he posted his phone number on the internet. Almost as soon as he posted it, a call came in. Lee Yundong picked up and said, "Hello? Who is this?" "Lily, it's really Lee Yundong." A girl on the other side of the phone yelled excitedly, "It's really him?" A voice that Lee Yundong was very familiar with came from the other side of the phone. "No way. Let me hear it." Cell phones nowadays had the ability to store phone numbers, so even though Sun Lee had contacted Lee Yundong a few times before, she couldn't remember his number at all. She had also joined in the fun on the forum before, but now that she realized that it really was Lee Yundong's number, she grabbed the phone in surprise. "Hello? Hello? Lee Yundong, is that you?" "My dear class rep," Lee Yundong said with a wry smile. "Why do I have to call you everywhere?" Sun Lee burst into laughter. "Congratulations, Lee Yundong. You're famous now. You're the most popular student in our school." Lee Yundong laughed. "What the hell? Who cares about that? Hurry up. Do you know the moderator of the school board? Delete that post about my girlfriend. I don't like it." "Yo," Sun Lee said with a drawl. "You just got famous, and you're already pointing fingers? You really do change when you're famous, huh?" Lee Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "My dear class rep, just do me a favor. I can't help you, Sun Li said with a smile. Good luck. With that, she hung up the phone. While Sun Li was on the phone with Li Yundong, her roommates had already posted the news online that it was indeed Li Yundong's number. It really is Li Yundong. I just talked to him. Haha. Students who want to hear Li Yundong's magnetic voice, hurry up and call him. His phone is going to explode soon. As expected, as soon as Li Yundong hung up the phone with Sun Li, an unfamiliar number came through. The moment Li Yundong picked up the call, he heard a pleasant northeastern accent. It was a man. Is this Li Yundong? He said. Oh my, it really is you, bro. Oh my, you're so awesome tonight. Let me tell you, I admire you so much right now. What? You don't believe me? Those were my heartfelt words. They were absolutely true. Hey, are you listening? Hey. Li Yundong hung up the phone with a strange look on his face. Where did this psycho come from? He muttered. But as soon as he hung up, another number came in. This time it was a woman, but her voice was as rough as Zhang Fei's. Oh my god, are you really Li Yundong? Li Yundong asked in a Shaanxi accent. Oh my god, are you really Li Yundong? Li Yundong was so startled by the voice that he immediately dialed the number. But as soon as he dialed the number, another call came through. Li Yundong was furious. He turned off the phone and tossed it to the side. By then, the school forum had exploded with activity. Those who managed to get through to Li Yundong were showing off in the forum, while those who couldn't were sighing in despair. Li Yundong couldn't help but laugh as he read the posts on the forum. These people really have nothing better to do. Su Chan came out of the bathroom after taking a shower. She was wearing Li Yundong's loose casual shirt, which was completely bare inside. Her breasts were slightly protruding, and she was wearing a pair of Li Yundong's loose pajama pants. Her delicate toes peeked out of her sandals in a mischievous manner. What's wrong with you? Who were you talking to? Su Chan noticed that Li Yundong was sulking in front of her desk, so she sat down next to him with a smile on her face. Li Yundong looked at the beautiful girl in front of him and pretended to be angry. Someone is plotting against you and I'm jealous. Su Chan giggled and suddenly kissed Li Yundong on the cheek. Then she took his arm and said, Sir, this girl belongs to you alone. No one can take her away from you. Really? Li Yundong pretended to look skeptical. Really? Su Chan's eyes turned into crescent moons. Her smile was so sweet that it seemed to melt Li Yundong. Yes, sir, she said in a sweet voice. Li Yundong was very satisfied. He smiled and hugged the girl. Well, let me verify your identity. Come here, uncle will check your body. Su Chan giggled, stood up and ran. As she ran, she laughed and ran into her bedroom. Then she poked her head out and made a face at Li Yundong. No, you can't do anything bad to me. Li Yundong's previous unhappiness disappeared. He pretended to be a horny grandmother wolf and pounced on Su Chan. I'm going to eat you up today. Su Chan screamed and slammed the door shut. Then she let out a peal of laughter. While the young couple was laughing and playing, the school's forum was finally flooded by excited students. The server was completely paralyzed, and the students had no choice but to turn off their computers and return to reality from the virtual world. Zhou Qin rested her chin on one hand and patiently watched the video of Li Yundong that she had downloaded. Her usually expressionless face now had a gentle smile on it. He will come to my party tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. However, when Zhou Qin's gaze fell on the forum page that had already been closed, her two beautiful eyebrows immediately frowned slightly again. Who is the mysterious girl next to Li Yundong? Zhou Qin sighed faintly. Before she could get anything she wanted, this time she had her eyes on a boy. But this boy belonged to someone else. Could she still have him? Zhou Qin's thoughts drifted far, far away. Chapter 64. As soon as he walked into the classroom, the students who had been chatting suddenly quieted down, and then looked at Li Yundong. Haha, the superstar is here. Class President Sun Li exclaimed, pointing a finger at Li Yundong. The students in the class were all fired up. They rushed to Li Yundong like a tidal wave and handed him their notebooks and papers one by one. Superstar. Hurry up and give us your autograph. Zhenren Li, take me as your disciple, hee hee. Of course, before that, please sign your name. Li Yundong was shocked. He hadn't expected that after one night, these students would still be so excited. He waved his hand and said pretentiously, alas, I've always stressed that we should keep a low profile, but you always give me flowers and smiles. It's really embarrassing. The students roared with laughter. Even Sun Li was guffawing. She pointed at Li Yundong and yelled, "He's acting like a big shot. What are we going to do about it?" The students in the class laughed and said, "Take off your clothes, take off your pants, and throw your shoes." Seeing that the situation was not good, Li Yundong hurriedly tried to escape through the door. When he turned his head, he saw Chris, John, and the other students attending the International University Exchange meeting walking over. Compared to the enthusiastic students in the class, Li Yundong was more afraid of facing these two foreigners. No matter what, he had played a prank on the foreigners and made a fool of himself. This was wrong after all. Brothers and sisters. Li Yundong quickly turned around and begged for mercy. He cupped his hands and said, "Everyone listen to me. I will definitely get the autographs for everyone. Now that the foreigners are here, we can't let them see us make a fool of ourselves, right? We were born from the same root. Why are we in such a hurry to destroy each other?" The students roared in agreement. Some of the bolder girls stole glances at Li Yundong as they giggled. "What's the rush?" Li Yundong's eyes widened. When Li Yundong sat down in his seat, he let out a long sigh of relief. "Why did they ask for your autograph?" Su Chan asked in confusion. Li Yundong thought for a moment and said, "Well, some people think that you are a star or that you have the potential to be a star, so they come to ask for your autograph. On the one hand, they can show off to others, and on the other hand, they can sell it when you become famous in the future." Su Chan's eyes lit up. "Autographs can be sold for money? If I become a big star in the future, of course I can sell it," Li Yundong said. Su Chan giggled. "Then I want an autograph too." Li Yundong couldn't help but laugh at her cute appearance. "What do you want an autograph for?" Su Chan smiled and said, "I want a lot of your autographs. I'll be rich in the future." Li Yundong burst into laughter and ruffled the girl's hair affectionately. "Idiot," he said. "Too many signatures makes them worthless. Besides, my signature is worthless." Su Chan pouted, her interest waning. "Is that so?" Li Yundong was tickled by the girl's cuteness. He couldn't help but lean over and whisper, "If you want, I'll only give you an autograph. Then the autograph on your hand will be worth some money." Su Chan's gloomy expression immediately brightened up. Her face lit up with joy, and she quickly asked, "Really?" Li Yundong tried hard to hold back his laughter and said, "It's more real than a pearl. But do you have a piece of paper or book for me to sign?" Su Chan had only accompanied Li Yundong to school, and she had been empty-handed the whole time. She suddenly looked embarrassed. "I don't have any. What should I do?" Li Yundong whispered in Su Chan's ear, "I can sign it on your body." His breath tickled Su Chan's ear, and her whole body went limp. She giggled. "You're so annoying. You're not shy at all." Li Yundong and Su Chan were getting closer and closer. Some of the things he had been afraid to say in the past were getting more and more fluent and bold. He was about to tease the girl again when he saw someone sitting down next to him. Li Yundong turned his head and saw that Chris was looking at him angrily. Then a few people also sat down in the back row. John stretched his head over and said to Li Yundong with a smile, "Take a loss." Li Yundong shook his head and sighed. "You two are so patient. 2 more days and you'll go back to America. Why do you have to do this? It's good to leave a good impression on yourself. It's not like Tianan City University doesn't have any scenic spots. You can go there and see more, okay?" John had been listening to Li Yundong speak Chinese in a daze. He couldn't understand a single word at all. When he finally heard the last word, he understood it. Okay. How could he not understand? He didn't care what Li Yundong said. He quickly nodded his head like a rattle to show his existence. Okay. Li Yundong was amused by John and burst out laughing. Chris, who was beside him, suddenly turned her head and shouted at John, "Shut up! Shut up!" John immediately fell silent. He looked at Chris with a wronged expression. Chris, what did I do to offend you again? This guy is trying to drive us away, Chris said. He doesn't like us. Hardadef's face was suddenly full of sadness and pain. He shouted at Li Yundong, "You've hurt my heart by doing this. I sincerely and seriously want to worship you as my master." It was a pity that Li Yundong couldn't understand a single word of his sincere confession. After Chris translated it for him, Li Yundong thought for a moment and said, "Since you feel that you are very sincere, I will also tell you very sincerely that unless you learn Chinese and settle down in China, then I can teach you. Otherwise, it is absolutely impossible." Chris had come to Li Yundong today because, as international exchange students, they wanted to listen to the courses at Tiannan University. On the other hand, she had returned to her residence last night. After thinking about it, she still felt unreconciled. She had never been treated like this since she was a child. Apprenticeship was secondary. The most important thing was to fight for justice. Americans were free and undisciplined by nature, but the national conditions of the world's most powerful country had cultivated an arrogant mentality of, "I am the best in the world" in their bones. When Chris heard Li Yundong's words, she was so angry that she forgot to translate. She directly shouted at Li Yundong, "You have no sincerity at all. You are destroying the friendship between the two countries." Fine, going to the main line, this was really a big accusation. Li Yundong was eloquent. He sneered and said, "I said, it's your business whether you want to be my disciple or not. It's my business whether I want to accept an apprentice or not. Although your country is powerful, it's not powerful enough to force me to accept you as my apprentice, right? Don't talk about the friendship between the two countries. It sounds disgusting. Your country has done a lot of things that go back on their words." The exchange students at the University of Pennsylvania also understood Chinese. When they heard this, they immediately advised Chris, "Forget it. Don't force yourself. Maybe they do have such a rule." "Yes, Chris, I heard that Chinese people are really very particular about accepting apprentices." These people advised her one after another. Chris was known as a China expert in university, and she also studied China's Chinese language and literature and ancient history of China. She was known as the Venus of Wisdom and Beauty in the International Academy. How could she not understand these words? Chris took a deep breath, and her anger gradually subsided. However, there was a faint stubborn look in her eyes. She lowered her voice and said, "I won't give up. Sooner or later, you will accept me as your apprentice. Of course, there is also him." Chris pointed to John, who was sitting in the back row. Li Yundong felt that this foreign girl really had the personality of a Hunan person. She was so domineering. She knew it was impossible, but she still did it. Li Yundong smiled and said, "Well, let's wait and see. I'm very curious. What will you do to make me accept you as my master?" John wanted to be apprenticed to Li Yundong because he really loved all kinds of fighting skills in this world. Especially when Li Yundong had knocked someone down with a punch, it had made him even more like a drug addict. How could he give up the opportunity to learn? Before, Chris wanted to be apprenticed to Li Yundong as a master, but it was nothing more than a joke. Now that the joke had become real, this foreign girl's stubborn temper had come back. Li Yundong ignored these foreigners. He glanced out of the corner of his eye and saw Zhou Qin and Ding Nan enter the classroom. Ding Nan saw Li Yundong at first glance, then gently nudged Zhou Qin with her elbow and gestured in Li Yundong's direction with her eyes. Zhou Qin also saw Li Yundong, and a touch of softness flashed in her eyes. She nodded slightly to Li Yundong as a greeting. This action couldn't be more ordinary for others, but for Zhou Qin it was earth-shattering. In the classroom there were people who knew this cold-faced girl. Suddenly they were so surprised that a fist could be stuffed into their mouths. Zhou Qin actually took the initiative to greet someone. "She also likes Li Yundong? I heard that she's having a birthday party today. Did she invite you?" "No, but Sun Li, the class monitor, was invited. And I heard that most of the guests are handsome guys and pretty girls. Tisk tsk. I wonder what her birthday party will be like." As the students whispered to each other, the teacher arrived at the classroom, and the classroom slowly quieted down. Li Yundong dragged Su Chan out of the classroom as if he were on a break. They still had classes in the afternoon. and there was no way they could go back to their own home for lunch. So they headed straight for the cafeteria. As soon as they entered the cafeteria, everyone in the cafeteria turned to look at them. One of them was Tiannan University's most popular girl, and the other was Tiannan University's universally acknowledged perfect girlfriend. How could a pair like this not attract attention? Suchan was a carefree person, but she still felt uncomfortable being stared at by so many people in the cafeteria. She reached out and tugged on Li Yundong's sleeve. "Why are they looking at me?" "You're too pretty," Li Yundong said. "That's why they're looking at you." Suchan's face broke into a smile. "Really? It's fake." Li Yundong laughed. Suchan's face fell. "You're so annoying." The two of them bought some food in the cafeteria and sat down. No one at the table approached them again. It wasn't that they didn't want to, but that Li Yundong and Suchan's aura was too strong. Li Yundong looked around and saw that no one was within 5 meters of him. Suddenly, he felt a sense of loneliness, as if a lifetime had passed. He let out a long sigh. So this is what it feels like to be a star, he thought. Chapter 65. "Oh, it's you." Li Yundong chuckled. Feng Na was wearing a white short-sleeved blouse and a pair of jeans that accentuated her slender and straight legs. Her figure was slim, youthful, and full of vitality. Coupled with her sweet smile, Li Yundong was a little dazed when he saw her. "What?" Feng Na giggled but didn't sit down right away. Instead, she teased Li Yundong. "Are you trying to act like a big shot now?" Cheng Cheng, who was always by Li Yundong's side, also walked over with her plate. "You're trying to act like a big shot now? No way, you should at least give us your autograph before you act like a big shot." Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You guys are making fun of me too? No way, right? Come on, sit down. If you don't, I'll be a national sinner." Feng Na giggled and sat down across from Li Yundong with Cheng Cheng. "By the way, was that really you on the form yesterday?" Feng Na asked with interest. Li Yundong was so angry at the thought that he still didn't dare to turn on his phone. "It was me," Li Yundong said grumpily. Feng Na and Cheng Cheng burst into laughter. Feng Na laughed so hard that she was rocking back and forth. "That phone number is also yours?" Li Yundong lowered his head and said in a muffled voice as he ate, "Of course." Feng Na laughed. "You're crazy. I can't believe you posted your phone number on the internet. Stop fooling around and get a new SIM card. Don't you know how many pretty girls want to give you love letters and ask you to get a room?" Li Yundong almost spat out the food from his nose. "No way. Are all girls so bold and unrestrained nowadays?" Feng Na smiled without saying a word. Cheng Cheng said, "Hey, Li Yundong, turn on your phone and see how many missed calls and messages you have." Li Yundong couldn't help but be curious. He took out his phone from his pocket and pressed the power button. After a while, his phone started ringing like crazy. Li Yundong desperately pressed the hang-up button. But it didn't work. There was a message every second, and it didn't stop ringing for 5 minutes. Feng Na and Cheng Cheng couldn't help but sigh. "What do you mean by popular?" "That's what it means to be popular. I'm so jealous." Li Yundong was so angry that he directly removed the battery of the phone, then threw the phone on the table and said angrily, "Are you envious? I can't even use my phone. I wasted a card for no reason." Feng Na winked at Li Yundong and said, "How does it feel to be surrounded by stars? How does it feel to be surrounded and chased after?" Li Yundong rolled his eyes at her. "You want to know? That's simple. Why don't you become famous too?" Feng Na sighed faintly and said with a self-pitying look on her face, "I want to do that too, but I don't have the ability to do it. She's not like Suchan, who is the center of attention wherever she goes." Suchan's ears perked up when she heard them talking about her. Her eyes curved into crescent moons as she smiled. "Are you complimenting me? I like to hear people praise me more, praise me more." Feng Na and Cheng Cheng had never interacted with Suchan before, and they were afraid that this ridiculously beautiful girl would be difficult to approach, so they deliberately praised Suchan. Who would have thought that Suchan would be so good-natured and unpretentious? Her words made Feng Na and Cheng Cheng burst into laughter. Li Yundong smiled and poked Su Chan's nose with his chopsticks. You're so vain. Su Chan made a face at Li Yundong. Feng Na was jealous of Su Chan and Li Yundong's intimacy, but Su Chan's cuteness was alluring to both men and women. It only took one sentence for Su Chan to leave a good impression on Feng Na. Feng Na couldn't help but speak up for Su Chan. You're wrong, Feng Na said. Who in this world isn't vain? Li Yundong tapped his nose with a pair of chopsticks. I'm just a nobody, he said. Feng Na and Li Yundong were very familiar with each other, so she knew that he was a playful person who didn't care about trifles. Oh, come on, Feng Na said bluntly. No one in this world isn't vain at all. So many people like you. Aren't you happy at all? Aren't you happy at all? Don't you feel satisfied when a girl says, Li Yundong, I love you? Li Yundong thought about it seriously for a moment. I admit that I feel happy when a girl confesses to me, he said. But if a girl confesses to me, I might feel happy too. But it won't be as exaggerated as you think. After saying that, Li Yundong pinched Su Chan's round, jade-like earlobe. Because I already have a girl, he said with a smile. I only want to drink one ladle of beautiful water. Su Chan giggled and dodged Li Yundong's hand. Then she pretended to hit Li Yundong with her chopsticks. It's so ticklish. Although Su Chan said it was annoying, she was beaming with joy. There was a deep sense of joy in her voice. Changcheng glanced at Feng Na and couldn't help but sigh. Feng Na was flustered by Changcheng's stare. She forced a smile and said, Li Yundong, you're so stingy. You like your girlfriend so much, but you let her wear men's clothes. I've seen her wear a set of clothes for several days. Li Yundong was stunned for a moment. Although he was a clean person, he didn't pay much attention to his clothes and appearance. He really hadn't thought about buying a few sets of clothes for Su Chan. Of course, the most important thing was that Su Chan hadn't asked for them. Li Yundong turned his head and looked at the little girl beside him. He saw that the girl was wearing a pair of spaghetti pants that he had worn before, which looked a little loose and fat. The cultural casual shirt she was wearing made her look even more petite. Su Chan tried hard to wipe out the braised pork on her plate with a spoon. She blinked at Li Yundong, who was looking at her. What are you looking at? She asked. Li Yundong smiled. How about I take you to buy some new clothes today? Su Chan said disapprovingly. Don't we have clothes at home? Why should we buy them? Li Yundong chuckled. Those are my clothes. You can't wear my clothes all the time, can you? Su Chan immediately put down the spoon in her hand and looked at Li Yundong. You don't like me? She said pitifully. You don't want to give me clothes to wear? Li Yundong laughed and pinched Su Chan's cheek. Idiot. How can a girl wear boys' clothes all the time? Su Chan slapped Li Yundong's hand away and made a face at him. Why not? By the way, the food here isn't good. It's not as good as your cooking. Li Yundong laughed. Of course. This is a big pot. How can it be better than a small pot with a small stove? Feng Na looked at Li Yundong in surprise. You know how to cook? Li Yundong said proudly. Of course, I'm a chef. Li Yundong said to Su Chan, isn't that right, girl? Su Chan wrinkled her nose at Li Yundong, causing her nose to wrinkle. It's not delicious at all. Feng Na and Changcheng burst out laughing. See? You're being ridiculed. Li Yundong didn't expect Su Chan to ridicule him in public. You stupid girl, he said angrily. You always take the food away from me. I don't even have the food to eat. Why do you take it away if it's not good? Su Chan puffed up her cheeks. What if I say it's good and they want to eat it too? It's already not enough for 2 people, but it's even less for 4 people. Li Yundong laughed so hard that he leaned back. He really loved this little girl in his heart. He pinched the little girl's pink cheeks hard and said, Idiot, can't I do a little more? When Su Chan saw that Li Yundong was about to pinch her face, she was so scared that she quickly covered her cheeks with her hands and jumped back. With this jump, an "iya" sound came from behind him, followed by the sound of a metal plate falling to the ground. Li Yundong turned around and saw Zhuang Hui holding a plate of food. There was soup splashed all over her clothes. The other girl beside her had overturned her plate, and her dress was covered in soup. Are you blind? Are you blind? The girl who had overturned her plate looked down and saw that her dress was stained. She screamed. Su Chan was shocked. I'm sorry, I didn't see. She apologized. When Feng Na saw that Su Chan was also covered in soup, she took out a napkin from her purse and handed it to Li Yundong. Li Yundong took the napkin and wiped the soup off Su Chan's arms and clothes. I'm sorry, he said apologetically. We didn't mean to. Zhuang Hui's eyes lit up when she saw Li Yundong. Li Yundong. The girl's anger dissipated as soon as she heard Li Yundong's name. She wiped the soup off her clothes with her handkerchief and looked at Li Yundong carefully. You're Li Yundong? Li Yundong nodded and said, I'm sorry for dirtying your clothes. The girl ignored Li Yundong. She moved closer to Zhuang Hui and looked Su Chan up and down. So this is your love rival, she whispered. Let me teach her a lesson for you. Zhuang Hui wanted to dissuade the girl. But when she saw Su Chan looking helpless and pitiful, her heart filled with jealousy. This girl is so disgusting and pretentious. It's her fault, but she's acting like she's being wronged. Li Yundong can't be fooled by a girl who's good at acting. People with complicated minds couldn't help but think of the world as complicated. Zhuang Hui's narrow-mindedness couldn't be understood by others. Do you know how much my clothes cost? The girl who had been accompanying her yelled at Su Chan. Li Yundong could tell that the girl was a student of the art faculty with a pretty face and a good figure. However, the shrewish tone in her voice made Li Yundong think that she was a chef who cooked fried rice, and a chef who cooked Sichuan cuisine. Li Yundong couldn't bear to see Su Chan get bullied, so he pulled the girl behind him and said with a frown, We've already apologized for what happened today. Su Chan poked her head out from behind Li Yundong and said meekly, I really didn't mean it. If you want, I can help you clean it up. The girl laughed and said with a look of disdain, Clean? Do you even know what brand I'm wearing? Christender. It's der. Do you think it's because of the crappy stuff you're wearing? Su Chan had no idea what Dior was. She said blankly, Dior? How much is it? I'll pay for it. The girl sneered. Pay for it? Can you afford it? All the clothes you're wearing can't even compare to a single thread on my body. Su Chan's face turned red. Li Yundong was furious. He raised his eyebrows and glared at the girl. What did you say? Before Li Yundong became famous at the gala, few people dared to look him in the eye. Now that he was a celebrity at school, his glare doubled. Not only did the girl's aura weaken, even Zhuang Hui, who had been waiting to watch the show, was frightened. Zhuang Hui tugged at Su Chan's arm. All right. Let's go. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.